Hello, everybody.
Hello.
And welcome to another episode with Yagoda. We're going to talk about Tarot. This is going to be part 3. So we'll be doing the last third of the Arcana today. And then at the end, we'll do all of the promo stuff about how to reach everybody and what's going on. For those watching live, we do encourage you to ask questions and make comments in the chat. And actually, I have a... where did that go? Welcome and thanking you, but I have now misplaced that banner. So yeah, we're going to talk about Tarot, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Yagoda, and I guess maybe do a little bit of an introduction of who you are, or maybe get it. I don't know. I'm not sure what people prefer.
Do you have the image from last time, Casri, like the tarot image, or do you need to look for it?
I will look for that, and I think I did bookmark it.
Well, in case I can also look for it for you, in case you need it.
StreamYard, no. I think, why don't you look for it too, and we'll see who gets to it first.
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy because you can just find it in Google Images, so it's not very difficult.
I probably should do that.
Oh, no, I got it. I'm going to send it to you in a private link.
All right, thank you.
There you go.
There we go, and then I'll pull that over here.
Anyway, yeah, now that I've gotten this out of the way, I can talk about my practice. I am an astrologer, a tarot reader, a spiritual teacher, a reiki healer, and in this live stream with Casri, we talk about the basics of various esoteric arts to help people who have little experience feel more comfortable in learning them, because I know a lot of people think that you can just Google things and it's easy for them, but not everyone has an easy intuitive understanding the way that other people do. So I'm trying to use my skills in the department to help people understand the basics of various esoteric arts. So we already did basics of numerology, basics of astrology, basics of tarot, and right now we are kind of going deeper into tarot by exploring the Major Arcana, and we kind of doing it piece by piece because I'm explaining every card in detail, and we're also doing mini readings to kind of show an example of how these things play out in the reading. But I think today is going to be the last part because we kind of divided the whole exploration in rows based on this image you see on screen right now, and we already covered all the top 2 rows plus the full on the top, and we only have the bottom row left. So if you have just started watching us for the first time through this live stream, I recommend that you start with the basics of tarot and then with other first 2 parts of the Fool's Journey, because this is kind of a story that goes from the beginning, which is the Fool, to the end, which is the world. And as a story, it has to be watched from the beginning till the end. Like, you're not going to start watching Harry Potter from the last movie, right? You start from the first one. This is how this works. And if you're very new to tarot, don't worry, because this is totally beginner friendly. Like, this is me explaining every card and the meaning of every card, because I know a lot of people try to read for themselves or others. People have their own channels and they also want to be better tarot readers. And intuitive gifts work differently for different people. So this is a good way to be able to really understand there's a very deep esoteric meaning behind every card that we have. And I also give examples of how each card plays out in context, if it's mixed with other cards, which also is something that I do again with the readings, that I show how, depending on the question that you're asking, you're going to get a different result for the card that you're bringing up. And yeah, after we finish the Major Arcana this week, next week we're going to start going towards the Minor Arcana. I don't know, quite frankly, how this is going to work time-wise. I'm thinking that one suit is going to take one week. So basically 1 week for the Suit of Wands, 1 week for the Suit of Swords, 1 week for the Suit of Cups, and 1 week for the Suit of Pentacles. So yeah, if you're also interested in the Minor Arcana, that is coming next. So stay tuned, subscribe to me and Casri so that you can also learn about that. So if you don't have any other questions, Casri, I'm ready to jump into it.
I was just going to kind of run visually by saying, we started with the Fool, and then the part 1, which you can get to in from a couple of weeks ago. We did the Magician, this first row through the first what number is that? Number 7. First 7 cards up to the Chariot, and then last week it was Strength up through Temperance. And then this week we're doing the last row. And if it does relate, if the devil relates back to temperance, or I guess it's, let's see, it's 15, it probably relates back to other numbers. I'll scroll along there, but go ahead.
Yeah, give me just a second. I have some link that I have to close. I don't know, something happened in my browser, but I'll get right back to it. Yeah, so last week we finished with temperance. That was the last one, I guess, right? Can you scroll back to the previous one? Because I have the thing. I have to wear my glasses because I really heard a drive from. Yeah, there you go. So last week we left at the level of temperance, which is a number 5 ruled by Mercury, and we explained its meaning. How the temperance is about balancing the new with the old after the onset of destruction that was caused by death, and how it's about having hope and being able to reconcile the things that we used to care for that survived and the new things that we have to incorporate in our lives as a result of some things going away from us. And as we move on to the devil, you can again see that what matters is the character that's in the middle of the card. And here, kind of like with the Lover's card, which by the way is also a 6 numerologically, here this is a 15-6. You can see two people, like a man and a woman, and they have like little horns, but they're also chained together. As you can see, they're kind of like little demons. But the central figure in this card is not the people. It's the devil that is between them. Just like with the Lovers, the love was the central theme. Here, the devil is the central theme. So this card basically represents all the flip side of the Lovers card. When in the Lovers, it was about working positively for a relationship. And it was about let's look. Yeah, you can see we have this angel, like the imagery here is angelic, right? And the devil is like literally like the yang to the yin of the Lovers. They both have the same rulership of Venus, which is number 6, which you will know if you watch our numerology course, because I can't backtrack into that right now, one thing at a time. But the 6 is the number of Venus, and the Lovers and the devil are both Venusian cards. So here you can kind of see how these two cards have this extreme polarity, right? And in a way, it is easier to be in the Lover's energy as it's in the younger vibration. But the devil is like the ultimate, most difficult Venusian energy in the whole tarot deck for a person to overcome. Because the devil represents control, and it represents all the negativity, the negative attachment that can be formed between people as a result of them being together. So, we think that life is, very black and white in this way, that we think that love ultimately is always a positive thing, right? But tarot teaches us that Venus has double meaning, which is something that people who are new to astrology don't know, but it's very relevant here, because Venus actually represents both love and death. And the death in Venus is a result of the devil, which is being controlled to the point that the relationship now runs your life. And because of the things that you're doing together with the person, you end up transcending your own personal limitation in such a way that you cross your own boundaries, because the relationship now dictates how you personally behave. So as a result, this is where you become a slave to certain instincts as a result of this coupling. So while in temperance, we have managed to achieve that balance and that new horizon, we are now going through another level of purging. Something that you see as you go into more advanced, later level tarot cards, there's a lot of purging going on, is that there's more advanced negative quotation mark themes that you have to be able to transcend as a result of your mastery. So it's kind of like when you're younger, as in the early energy, you get easier lessons, but now as you are maturing, you get a more advanced course, and the more advanced course, of course, consists of having more difficult lessons to overcome. So here, basically, as much as you work towards love in the Lover's card, right, and the relationship becomes this beautiful goal that you are able to foster, here it kind of feels like this thing that you are working on has grown to the proportions that it has already taken your life. So that can, for example, be also used not just in the romantic context, but in the business context. So this is, let's say that there's a partnership, and it doesn't even have to be romantic, by the way. A very common misconception is that Venus is always romantic, but no, Venus represents all kinds of partnerships, and actually is very strongly also related to family partnerships, because Venus very much cares about genetic purity and ancestry, which is why Venusians are so interested in things like class and breeding with others of a good pedigree, because they care about progeny. So this can be a situation where, let's say that you start a company with your brother, family member, right? Two brothers start a company, and or maybe they inherit it after their father's death or something. Like in the movies, these kind of plot schemes happen all the time. And after a certain time, the company, the material achievement, the results of their work, which is the devil here, they start ruling them to the point that they ruin their own relationship. And this is something that you can see very often happen, that the greed, the material object of their desire, their purpose, begins transcending the actual value of the relationship, which is in the lovers. So the devil basically shows that you have a need to overcome that. However, you don't really fully overcome it until the Tower card, which is the next. So the devil showing up in a reading will signify that there is basically something that you need to work on from a material standpoint that has been controlling your life. However, on the flip side, also, if the devil is accompanied by a positive card in your tarot readings, such as the Magician, signifies material achievement. Why? Because technically, we cannot survive on this plane without caring for the material. We have to, eat. We have to take care of housing and these kind of things. So what this might also mean, for example, in a reading is that maybe you started an endeavor with a very selfless heart. Maybe you just really started something because you loved it. And the devil can indicate something that you become unexpectedly famous through doing what you love. So, it's kind of this predicament that, let's say that there's a young artist, she's a singer, and she really started to sing because she loves singing, right? She doesn't care if she's the next Madonna. She just sings with the purity of her heart. And then you would get, for a person like this, you would get a reading with the devil that indicates, well, you're about to get signed by a very big record company, and soon everyone's gonna know your name. And how are you gonna respond to that success? So basically, the devil can also indicate material success in a quite a high level that's unexpected relative to your current circumstances. But in a way, it also shows there's always the temptation to succumb into being controlled by your own success. So when in temperance, we are achieving a certain level of perfection between being able to transform from destruction. That gives us a very high level of psychological power, because if you are someone who can transform from your own downfalls, then you're a very strong, powerful person, right? And you can build up more. But the devil asks you, well, now that you can build up more, is your own ego, is your own vision of greatness, your idea of greatness going to become your own idea of control and prison? Like, I don't want to read, drop shade of anyone in particular right now, but I just, it comes to my mind as an excellent example. Like, you can think of somebody like Kanye West, who is famous, and he's objectively a good artist, like, I don't care about rap, but he is gifted, the gift is real. And, to be in the music industry, you have to be able to overcome many things, because the pressure of that industry is incredible. And especially if you're a person of color, the racism, like this slurs, the aggression that you go through can be very difficult. So he's undoubtedly a person that has done things that are great, and has also survived difficult things, right? Survived things like divorce or whatever. But look at the state that he's in right now. To me, he's the definition of someone who's in the devil state, where he is so consumed by his own success, he doesn't use it to, contribute to a humanitarian cause or to create more beautiful art. He uses it to parade his newest arm candy on his arm. And there are many people who say that for him, the definition of his partner is for her to kind of stroke his ego as he shapes her in his own image. That he basically treats every woman he has as a doll that he can mold, right? So you can see this is someone completely. Yeah, go ahead.
You're talking about Kanye West?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I hope I pronounced that correctly. The point is that you can see what the success did to him as a person, right? That there are people who are very famous who invest their money in things of meaning. Like, I don't know if you know who James Cameron is. He's a famous director. He directed Titanic and Avatar. He's a very also famous, wealthy man, because he's undoubtedly one of the biggest directors of our time, right? Like, everyone knows what the Titanic is. Everyone has seen it. And you can see the difference in him. That, for example, when you read anything about him, you can see that he does things as in, for his wife's birthday, he bought her some sort of a building to like create a school for some sort of disabled children or something. So this is somebody who uses his wealth instead to further environmental and social causes that help people. And he does it together with his wife, who's also a passionate advocate for this. And you can see that he kind of devoted himself to that relationship. And they are more in the lover stage themselves, where you can see that what they create together has a deeper meaning, and they try to, use their success responsibly. And then on the other hand of this, you have Kanye, who kind of, you can see he's lost in his own ego, and his success has kind of controlled even him as a person completely. And what he does is that he invites another female who agrees to the kind of transaction, and they both are completely shackled by that negative attachment. Success in itself is never a bad thing, so the devil teaches us, but it's what you do with it. So in a way, it has a very strong theme of responsibility in your life. And I use those celebrities to show someone on a grander scale, right? But the truth is that it can happen to us also in our personal lives. Like it's not that easy to be able to control your own ego and your own self when success is in your grasp. It takes a lot of character to be able to do that. So we might right now look down on someone because we approach them from the level of someone who doesn't have that success yet. But you always have to ask yourself the question of, if you had that, would you do better before judging anyone? So I think that this is a very thought-provoking card in that way, that shows that there's always a flip side to everything, and how easy we are controlled by material possessions or excess or any sort of abundance that can flow in our lives, that we often struggle to just let it go through us and to give it out and share it with those who need us. And we tend to try to hold on over it, and the element of control, as you can see with those shackles around people's necks, that that happen. When I see this card, I kind of think of the saying that you can hear sometimes when people say that things that you own end up owning you. And this is the definition of this card, that it's not that you can have things that you love, but it's how you approach them. Approaching them with care and consciousness is one thing, but acting like your new Maserati defines who you are, that's the problem. This is where you start having a problem. Do you have anything to say, Cassie? Because I see that you're interesting.
Yeah, it reminded me of, and I don't know if it matches exactly, but the saying that like the two best times of owning a boat are the day that you buy the boat and the day that you sell the boat, because apparently cars are maintenance, but boats, because of the water, like the things you have to do to just maintain them is really is a lot. So I suppose you could get excited about buying a yacht or whatever size boat, and then eventually maybe owning the boat's owning you in all the effort you have to put into it.
But see, this is an excellent example. Yeah, go ahead.
And I wanted to remind you, I think you'll probably remember that we also talk about, is it what, the reverse position is.
Yes, that was my next point. Yes. I just want to give you space to talk about it. It was my next idea. Yeah, but I really love the boat example, because you can see how that can go in several ways. Like, let's say that there is a fisherman that, he buys a boat, or he even makes it from wooden planks because he loves his craft and he needs a good boat to, to fish, which is something that he likes. Then he's going to respect that boat. He's going to clean. He's going to do the maintenance that you mentioned, right? And this is the positive ownership that, it's a good thing, right? Or even let's say that there's someone rich, and I don't know, some people, live on their yachts, and because they just like to travel the world, they don't like to stay in one place. They don't like to have houses. They just like to live on the boat, because all these boats are the size of real estate. And they just like to be mobile, because they like to be able to dock on, different town every day of the week if they want to. And some people, they just like to be at the sea at peace. They like isolation, right? And because they're wealthy, they can afford staff. They can afford people to pay for the maintenance. And they just like a certain level of introversion, and they have success to afford it. That's beautiful. But then there's the other side of people who buy a yacht because it's kind of like a status symbol. It's like, I buy a yacht because I can, not because I particularly care about the sea, or because I really like, I don't know, swimming, or because I'm very introverted and I want to dock in the middle of the Pacific so no one bothers me while I sip on my champagne and caviar, because I can't take people's energies. More like someone who just has the yacht, puts it in the dock, and is like, oh yeah, I have it, I feel so great about myself. And yeah, of course, you pay someone else for the maintenance, but there's an element of responsibility that, that you mentioned, that frankly, like, let's say that someone is wealthy, like, how many of those people truly really would be interested in the yacht? Like, there's only like a select group of them, from those who can afford it, that actually have enough passion to do it, right? Like, for example, even if I won the lottery tomorrow, I wouldn't buy a yacht because it doesn't interest me, it's not what I want from life, and, I don't care what this says about my status. I just think it would be a waste, of money to invest into something that I don't like. Just because someone else has doesn't mean that I have to have it, right? And I think that the responsibility over ownership, even of larger thing, is the very strong in this card. This is why Saturn, the planet of responsibility, exalts in Libra, Venusian sign, because this also gives a person a responsible perspective over their wealth. And you can see it with people who have that placement natally, that they do it well. Like, I'm going to give a bit of a personal example. My father-in-law has Saturn in Libra, and I was raised in a very poor family, in Europe, so it's different. And yeah, okay, he's not Warren Buffett, but he has more than my family has ever had, as in he can, for example, afford a bigger house. And he's the most humble person that I've ever seen Saturn in Libra. He wears clothes that are kind of unassuming, and he has enough for every occasion, but he doesn't flaunt himself at all. Like, he has a car that's like functional for shopping, but he doesn't, try to buy a new Tesla just to feel awesome about himself, right? He's And he still, no matter how much he has, he still kind of, tries to go to work to keep himself level, because he likes to do simple activities to keep himself grounded. And this is like a definition of someone who is responsible with Saturn in Libra, even if they don't have to work, they just do certain things to maintain a routine of their life. And this is why it's such an admirable placement, like between Saturn in Libra and Aquarius, where Saturn Aquarius is in its own sign, because then it becomes more of a humanitarian that contributes to worldly causes, and in Libra it just becomes a modest owner. So I think that that gives us a good example of how the devil can work, and how it's kind of both a promise of certain things but also a warning, So let's say that maybe, I don't know, you have a YouTube channel and you've been doing it for some time and you're kind of losing hope, and you're like, you know what, I don't know if it's a good idea for me to continue with the channel because I want to do something worthwhile. Then you get the devil. So it says, well, maybe you're about to get more subscribers, but then be careful of what that does to you, right? Be careful of, your ego getting big. And now to go into the reversal thing, this may be several things. First of all, it can be fear of our own success, because some people actually self-sabotage in such a way that they kind of purposefully keep themselves small because they think that they can't handle the wealth when it comes to them. They think they're afraid of their own greatness, because the devil does have certain greatness in it, right? It's just what you do with it. The people who are afraid of maybe branching out and doing something because they don't want to face that risk, they don't want to transcend that stage that you have to transcend for spiritual evolution. It's a part of the path, right? You can't get to the tower or the star or other further stages without crossing the devil. So there may be a fear of going through a transformation. Or there also may be an indication here that you really, really have gone very, very far down into that energy and you're avoiding to look at it. So maybe you're someone who is very egotistical, but you don't admit it to yourself. So the devil in reverse is like, well, not only you've gone very bad down the path, but also you're kind of in denial about what you have actually done with your life. And again, I'm going to use an example of Kanye West, that if you probably asked him about this, well, his favorite line to say is that he's God, right? So this, if you told him, well, you're a bit, you have become a bit shallow, and maybe, you should do something better with, your time and your wealth, whatever you want, but responsibly, he would tell you, I do what I want, I'm God, and yeah, I'm going to put more silicone in my babe's ass. This is how he would respond, right? So this is like a definition of how that works, that there may be resistance to us even looking at ourselves honestly in the mirror with the devil in reverse, or as opposed to, like I said, fear of success. And it will depend on your situation, the question, and other cards that are accompanying the reading. But it doesn't matter what kind of devil you get when it's in reverse or upright, because ultimately the next stage of the devil is the tower anyway. So it shows that ultimately everything has to come crashing down, whatever that might be. Because you can also see that even if if something lasts for a very long time, when something is found on the wrong basis, the tower, which is next, comes in to basically make everything that doesn't work crumble, because things that are not built on a solid foundation are just not meant to last that long term. Like, they can last for some years, right? But ultimately they crash. And I've also often seen that, by the way, that they would crash as per Saturn cycles. And when I mean Saturn cycles, Saturn has this 30-year cycle when it goes back to its own sign, right? Which is our personal Saturn return, but also globally in the scale of the whole universe. But Saturn also makes an aspect when it crosses through any sign of the same modality, as in fixed, cardinal, mutable. So let's say that you have Saturn in Aquarius like I do. So every time Saturn is in Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio too, it's also going to make a certain cycle. And between those signs, there's a 7-year cycle. So very often when you see a relationship start during one sign, let's say that a relationship starts during Saturn in Aries, by Saturn in Cancer, you're going to have first evaluation. It's the first 7-year Saturn cycle. And if you have anything durable, a company, a relationship, like anything like this, or a house, and it has a day of inception, the first 7-year cycle ending is going to be the tower moment. It's going to be a moment of testing to see how things work. And I have seen so many relationships, like both in the media and personally, fall apart at the end of the 7-year cycle. Like, you can't believe like how much of a common pattern that is. Why some people are married for 50 years? Because they can transcend these cycles. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that some of our listeners will be aware of the 7-year itch concept, which sort of predicts that in 7 years, relationships have issues and too sometimes break up or sometimes transform into something else.
Exactly, because you either transform and you're able to mature with Saturn, because when you have a good relationship, you are able to weather that storm together, or you cannot do that, and that shows that the basis of the relationship was flawed to begin with, because one person or another in a relationship is not taking accountability for what they should be. Like, very sadly, it's also something that you talk about, is that it takes two people for something to work, but only one person for something to break. So it's enough that one person in any partnership, business or personal, is not solid, the whole thing collapses, right? And it can be, it doesn't have to be romantic, it can be a roommate arrangement, it can be really anything, right? When you have any partnership, you really have to be solid on like both ends for anything to work whatsoever. And here basically you can see Saturn testing that resolve on the end of both parts of people, as they kind of bring it to like, okay, you have this problem and the other person has this problem, and how you both deal with that will define where this partnership goes. Because if one person is working on themselves and as a result trying to help the partnership, but the other one is not, then the whole thing is not going to go anywhere, because you can't build anything by yourself in life without the other person when it concerns a partnership, by definition, right? This is just how it works. And the Tower basically talks just about that, because it's a number 7 ruled by the South Node, which rules spiritual realignment, but also it represents a certain level of blow-ups, that everything that is not spiritually aligned must fall apart. So in a way, there's a level of surrender here, because with the Tower, there's this energy that, let's say that you did everything well, and you know that you have really worked to your highest potential and you have done your best in life, and then the Tower energy is coming through, right? Well, then there's nothing really that you have to worry about, because you've done your best and ultimately this will pay off for you. But if you know that there's an element of you not standing your integrity, that maybe, I don't know, for the first 7 years you have not been treating your girlfriend/wife well, that, you have been neglecting her, and now you don't want to change that, well, ultimately she's going to leave, right? Because she doesn't feel treated well. So it all shows that we only have to fear the Tower where there is something that is shaky in our own lives, because a person who is responsible spiritually embraces the fact that it's best actually to live without the weight of things that are meant to be destroyed. The best life that you can possibly have is a pure life, as in a life that is purified of elements that could hold you down, or elements that are unstable. And because this life is dynamic, you're never going to be in a place in life when you say, okay, well, now I have purified everything and I'm fine forever, because it comes every 7 years. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering if there's any specific, I know every deck is different, but if there's any significance, like to the crown, sort of, because it looks like a crown that's blowing off the top of the Tower on this card. And I guess there's two people, it's on fire, and the two people are either jumping. Yeah, it looks like maybe they're jumping to their death. And then even the lightning bolt sort of that's hitting it.
Your connection was.
Yeah, is that like Uranian?
Yes. Okay.
Influence?
You know what? I'm gonna write this down. I should make a whole episode about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, so that we can talk about that, because I do not perceive these planets as other people do. So I'm gonna for now withhold the comment about Uranus. I don't really believe that, okay. But I understand what you're saying. This is the astrology cliche that goes around, so it's not your fault. It's just how people talk about it. So how you gonna know?
Yeah, it was just sort of a guess. Like when I'm looking, because some of the other cards, and I forgot to even ask any questions about the Devil card, seemed, I guess, sort of straightforward. You kind of covered what's in there, but yeah, wondering if the symbols in this card, yeah, because and two, it's a tower. It's like on sort of at the crest of maybe a mountain or a butte or something, but it seems like it's very precariously up there. So I don't know all the.
Yeah, I'll explain this to you. So basically what happens is that the tower represents the fact that we erected a monument to our ego. That's why there's a crown on top, because this is like the negative ego vanity manifestation. So we kind of, isolate ourselves, because, to have a very strong ego, you cannot take anyone else's feedback, because then it would crumble, right? You have to be like, no, I'm the best and I don't listen to anyone. This is basically the result of the negative expression of the devil, building up this tower where you are your own king and you don't take any external feedback, right? So this is basically showing that, by the way, the lightning bolt actually in astrology is presented by Jupiter, like Zeus, because he is the god that starts dispensing the divine power. Saturn is modeling with the aftermath of divine lightning striking, and the lightning strike can be both inspiration, positively, if you are on the right side of the karmic cosmic law, or it can be destruction if you have erected this monument to your ego, basically. And the people around is just people that are just jumping ship, right? They're jumping out because the tower is collapsing. They can't be there. So basically, it shows a situation where whatever you have erected in the as a way to protect this ego identity is going to collapse. Now the thing is that we might think of it that it only happens to like bad people or whatever, but ego essentially exists well, first of all, as a defining characteristic, so we can survive life on this earth with the illusion of separation, which exists on this planet for the sake of us exercising certain concepts so we can mature spiritually. It's more like playing a computer game so that you can get into the character to get the benefit of the story, right? And our souls do that consciously. But what that can also mean is that in a positive sense, that you are the kind of person that can find inspiration or even something very positive from that destruction. So if you are someone who maybe you were feeling stagnant in life and you're thinking, oh my God, I wish something would change. And some people, they maybe have such deep subconscious blockages, they are not even aware and they don't even know what's holding them back because they don't know how much they're clinging to something that is not good for them because there's no way out for them, And to give you a personal example, even though I'm like the last person to like sit in the devil energy too long because I'm too selfless, I have the opposite issue actually. It can also represent the things that our ego does to us to keep us safe. And for me, one of those comfort zones was the fact that I was very afraid to like leave my family town, even though I wanted to at the same time. And the reason this happened is because I wanted to leave more when I was younger. And I have spent so many years kind of incarcerated there and unable to leave that it has become a comfort zone against my will. And it wasn't for the lack of trying because I tried, it was just circumstantial. I was waiting. And when the time came, when the universe finally, after all those years where I felt blocked, the door opened and I was like, well, you can go now because I have given you a partner that actually is from a different location and I've done this for you, which is something that I did not expect, And it came at this moment. And for me, it was kind of a tired moment because my attachment to the things that I left behind there completely crumbled. But, I let go of it because I knew that it happened out of, fear because of the world kind of boxing me in there. So, I was able to do it. But leaving that behind, it did feel in a way like a tired moment. So it can be something like this in your life where maybe you have been boxed in externally for a long time, and then when a chance comes to come out, you kind of are afraid to open that door of the prison cell that now frees you. And the tower shows the universe kind of sweeping in and saying, well, no, even if you're scared, we're gonna kick your butt lovingly to do it. So it doesn't always have to mean that you're a bad person, and you consciously fan your own ego. It can also mean that whatever structures that don't serve you are going to be collapsed. And if you're someone who is spiritual, you will welcome that energy. You will be grateful for it because it's nice not to be in prison, right? Freedom is a beautiful aspiration, right? You want to say something, Kesri?
Yeah, so it is like the tower is maybe a type of transformation card in a way. And then if it's reversed, it means something.
Oh yeah, I can get to the reversal. Yes, it's more about freedom actually, because the self-knowledge is spiritual freedom and being able to be liberated. But yeah, when it comes to the reversal, it can mean two things. One thing can mean that you are simply resistant to this change. You don't want to do the ego death, or if it's happening to you, you are, cursing God. You hate your life, and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to change. How dare you do this to me? So it means that complete unconsciousness in such a way that you're not embracing the fact that this transformation is for your own and highest good, right? And the other thing that can happen is that you, when you have it in reverse, is that you are dwelling too much on the negative consequences of it. So maybe let's say that something changed, so some things had to be destroyed so that new things could be born anew. And you are mourning the things that you have lost too much, and you're looking into the past too much, when you should really allow those things to be lost so that you can make space for something new. So it can be those two things, like too much tower or not enough tower. And again, it will depend on the context.
Cool. Well, I do want to encourage those who are watching live to make a comment or ask a question if you'd like to. Say hello. And if you're watching on the replay, you can always comment in the comments on the video. We do read those. And two, I haven't done this before, but when we go to the next card, I will have the card there when we're talking about it. And then maybe when you're talking, I'm going to actually take down the thing and put something else up just to let you know that's a change I'm going to make.
I'm confused, but I guess I'll see when you I don't.
You'll see what I mean. Well, I'm going to take down the share. Like I want the share up for when we're talking about like what's going on in the card, but then I'm going to pull it down, have us be bigger or you be bigger when you're talking, and then go back to the card. So
okay. Well, I would just like to make sure the card is in focus while I talk about the imagery, because there's going to be a moment when I'm going to explain the symbolism, and then the card is. Maybe I actually will start with that, and then so we can start with this and then pull away from the card. Okay, so the star, which comes after the tower, is a number 8, which is ruled by Saturn, and that means restructuring. So basically, after the fall that happened in the tower card, You can see how the star card in a way resembles the temperance card, where again there were two cups. Only in temperance, because it's a mercurial card, we were more trying to join opposites. But here in the star, there is more of a separation. You can see that how her hands are at a distance, and she's kind of, separating one source of water from the other. And you can see how the character, again, is kind of a central thing happening, because in the tower, it was kind of like the destruction, it's one of those cards where the whole imagery matters, right? Not the humans that fall out, but the destruction was the central part. While in the devil, it was the demon itself, the control itself, that was the problem. But in the star, you can see that it's the figure, but also the bright star above her, they are the central element, because the star represents hope. It basically represents that even after the worst destructive process in the tower, where you feel like everything that you've known has collapsed and your life has changed, there's always something new that's going to come into your life. And what matters is that in the star, because it's a Saturnian card, you are able to distinguish rationally what works and what doesn't work. So because the star already has the wisdom of the tower, the star knows what is not working. So it's separating those two currents of water through making sure that the right source stays on the right side and that they don't mix together and they don't create any more impurity, which would lead to another tower moment. And you can see also that the figure in the star is naked, which is not always the case, because in some other cards, like the High Priestess, she's fully robed, right? But here, the nakedness symbolizes the fact that she has lost everything in the tower. There's nothing left. So there's an honesty and purity in that separation, that there's really getting back to the root of things and being able to see what is truly of value. That is why Saturn, also rules the 8th house in astrology. It's the producer for the 8th house, because the 8th house is about not just this more superficial value, which is the 2nd house, but the true deep value of things that we get after really examining them. That's why it also rules investigation. And that's why the star also has this 8 energy, 8 energy, because it's the moment where after everything has been destroyed, we peer into the rubble and we see if there's anything worthy, and we discard what is not important, and we keep what matters. So let's say that maybe I'm done with the imagery by the way, so if you want to do something with that, then you can, because I think I explained enough. So let's say let's give it some sort of real life example that may feel relevant. So let's say that maybe you had a fire in your house, right? Really horrible situation. So that would be more like the tower, right? And then after the fire, some things you lost in the fire, but some things have survived, right? So some people, they might have such a deep level of trauma that they don't even want to approach the house, But then ultimately you have to go into the rubble and you have to see if there are any left any worthy belongings left in there, and take them out, and you have to purify it, because the star also represents purification. That's why there's an element of water on the card. So it represents basically cleaning up our own mess that is a result of the fact that we destroyed our own negative ego expression. So it's in a way taking accountability, because Saturn rules responsibility, right? It's taking accountability for the fact that we have to clean up after we destroyed our own mess, in a way. So let's say that you clean out your closet or whatever, and then you have some stuff at the bottom of the closet, and because it's been there for so long, it starts having a funky smell, right? What do? You put it in the laundry, right? You put it in the laundry machine because the clothes are still good, they just need to be refreshed, right? So you wash them, because you're taking the responsibility for the mess you made, because you are the one who put them there. You are the one who created the mess in your closet. So then you end up, first taking it all out, so there's a tower, and then washing whatever you find is worthy. So it's about taking responsibility for your own purification, taking responsibility for your own new beginning, knowing there's always going to come. And in a way, doing it in a very slow meditative way, because when you looked at the card, you could see that the image was very serene. There was a high level of serenity in the card, and there's almost a phlegmatic, naturalistic approach to this energy, where this person almost is not rushing into anything. They're just, taking their time, knowing that it's inevitable, that it's just not going to be done overnight. There's a patience element to it, because Saturn also is a patient planet. Now, if you're looking at the star in the reverse position, that can indicate, first of all, your resistance to new beginnings. So you may be someone who is still stuck in the tower stage, as in you are still kind of overwhelmed by the destruction, and you don't want to let go of it. You don't want to take accountability for the fact that you have to clean all of this up. And you're like, oh my God, I have to do all the cleaning. There's an issue with the responsibility. But the other thing that it can represent is the loss of hope. You don't see the fact that there are new opportunities for you coming, that there is an opportunity for your healing. You don't you don't want to see the silver lining, basically, because there may be a resistance to being afraid of having hope, basically. So this can be also the other expression of the reversal, in some way not embracing the opportunity, because Saturn is a burden. So there is a certain burden in having to do all that work, right? But a mature star expression is someone who does that almost like a monk, with that spiritual attitude. And someone who will get the card in reverse is someone who basically feels like it's just too overwhelming and they can't take it, they can do it, so they kind of just shirk from that responsibility, and as a result, they kind of sabotage their own hope for a new future, right? Anyway, do you have any other questions for the card? Because I'm done with that one.
I don't think so. Whoops. How do I go back to where I was? This one. Yeah. So in the star, it's both the person and the star in the sky. And I see there's a total of 8. There's like 7 little stars and a big star. I don't know if there's any.
Yeah, quite frankly, I think that the 8 also is very Saturnian, right? 8, the one in the one big one, and the 7 number around. Like I think the symbolism and the numbers and the imagery, they're very synchronistic. Like I wonder if the author even knew that on purpose, but the 8 Saturnian, the positive Saturnian expression of constructing something from the ashes is absolutely is refreshing. It's really nice.
Yeah, so, I think they might have known in part because it is the 17th card, and so 10, 17. So it's 1 and then 7, which is 8. So maybe there's that. But yeah, we could.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Give me a second. I don't know. I have some wild link opinion. I don't know why this is happening. There's something that happened with some websites where I have like an ad block installed, and they the websites they're trying to like really fight hard against people using ad block because they're trying to really push the ads in your face, and they have been resisting my ad block. Like even YouTube. Like I have had YouTube ad block for like 10 years now.
Yeah, there's a change. You're not. And too, since I have a channel, whatever, I went ahead and I do watch a lot of YouTube, and I watch YouTube. I have a YouTube TV, which I thought is why I wasn't seeing ads on YouTube. But then I started, and there was a countdown. I don't know if they're doing it like a few at a time, because I got a warning like a month ago that said, "Oh, only so much more time. You better upgrade to premium." And when I didn't, I forget what happened. But yeah, YouTube kind of locked up, and I'm like, okay, fine. I'm on here a lot anyway. Let me give them $10 a month or whatever it is. But yeah, the constant battle in the tech world.
Yeah, nothing really looked up for me, but right now it's kind of like the ad block is not working. Like they're trying to use the technology to bypass the ad block so that you get ads regardless of the ad block. Like it's I don't know how it's even happening. I'm gonna have to install some new ad block version, because I hate pop-ups and yeah, it's just I hate ads. I have never bought anything in my life because of a commercial. So it's like I am just not the person to market anything to unless it's something that I would do in the first place. So it really actually angers me.
And we won't go on too much of a tangent, but it reminds me, I had a friend who knew I really like they're called 5-finger shoes, which is like a stupid name, but Vibram makes them they're toe shoes. They have the individual little toes, and you're basically walking barefoot, but you have like a rubber sole on your foot. And she saw an ad for a winter shoe, because they don't really make a winter shoe. And I'm like, I wish I had that. And she saw it on Facebook, and she sent it to me, and I was heading down that road to buy it. And I forget what made me sort of feel like something was weird, something didn't work right. And it turned out to be a really elaborate scam where, because it was really cheap, because normally those shoes are at least $125. And so maybe they were like 60 or something. And I'm like, wow, that's a really good deal on those shoes. And I forget what happened, but luckily I didn't order them, because apparently it's a scam and it's a bummer. That's another reason not to buy from an ad. I mean, if a friend says, I bought this product, it's good, here's where you go get it. But yeah, constant battle.
Yeah.
But yeah. It is. So were we done with the star, or?
Yes, we are moving to the moon. For the next stage, I kind of would like you to backtrack back up when we had the previous number 9, so we can kind of review that part of the process.
Sure.
So that there you go. See, there you go. Yeah. We have the and go slightly more left before the hermit.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So here we had in the earlier stage we had the transition between the strength and the hermit, and we had the hermit had some sort of wisdom as a result of taming the strength. But now as we go down and we move on to the moon, from the star, we enter this interesting predicament that I'm pretty sure is something that happens to anyone who goes deep enough into their spiritual journey. Because let's remember that we are now entering the end of yet another cycle. This is the second cycle ending, and it's the last card of endings in the whole tarot deck, the moon. There's no other nines. So we have this interesting predicament that happens in the star where, we have endured so much by this point. We have endured the devil, we've endured the tower, the destruction, we have endured the patient spiritual work and the hope and new beginnings in the star. And right now we are at the stage of the moon where technically it's ruled by a 9, which is Mars, which rules spiritual direction. And you can see that there are a lot of elements in this card, right? Like this card is the moon, by the way, is a central character, the moon itself, which also looks like it's part of the sun because of the shape. And you can see that the moon kind of is a natural consequence of emergence from the star. It almost looks like it could be a GIF, and the star could phase into the moon on the next card. Like you can see how similar it is, right? That there is a natural, progression of what happens here. And you can see that the chaos that is happening in the moon card is something that a spiritual seeker always ultimately finds on their path. And it's the fact that even though in the hermit stage you felt like by isolating you would find a lot of answers, here in the moon you find wisdom by acknowledging that there is an inherent chaos in this universe fundamentally. And the only way to deal with this is to accept that chaos and the fact that there's the cycle of purging never ends, and that there will always be something new, and there's always going to be a new battle to win. And this is a very difficult stage to achieve in your personal life, because imagine that you are already in the star, and you're cleaning up your mess for the 100th time. You're like, oh my God, I picked myself up over and over again so many times, and then I have to do it again. And the moon is really the stage of spiritual acceptance, while the hermit accepts solitude and accepts this void to be able to hear God better around him. With the moon, you accept that. Yeah, go ahead. He's trying to show it.
I'm just wandering over to the hermit, which there we go, which is just up here.
Yeah, but notice how much of a simple card hermit is, right? Because at this stage of journey, we're not evolved enough yet. We still are kind of more in a simpler stage. But by the time we go to the moon, we see that there's always an inherent chaos in life, and the readiness to always embrace that chaos is what really makes a spiritual adept. It's kind of like a soldier being sent to war. You might think, oh well, one day the war is going to be over and I'm going to be free of my duty. But a soldier that's wise realizes that there's always going to be new conflict to solve. His job never ends. He always gets sent for a new mission, and maybe he can have better terms and conditions of that mission, but ultimately he always gets sent to a new goal. There's always a new conflict to defend from, a new problem to solve. And there's always some part of our unconscious that's going to keep popping up. So this tower moment is going to be happening again and again. And the star, through its tireless, slow work, has now gained enough rhythm, or more like the something of wisdom or rhythm of life, that it knows that. It's kind of like we're doing the dishes. No matter how many times you do the dishes, you have to do them over and over again every day, because you're going to keep eating meals. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a curiosity about, because I haven't used this deck myself, because the moon, and I know the moonlight is reflected sunlight, but it's interesting because the moon is very, looks like the sun, other than it does have a little bit of a crescent on the edge. And so, I'm curious about the I guess they're both dogs, like the two different colored dog-like animals, and then looks like a scorpion actually climbing out of the water. So I'm kind of surprised it's not a crab, since it's the moon, which would be Cancer. And then are those towers in the background?
Yes, that's why I told you that there are. Yeah, that's why I told you there's always a new conflict to overcome, because you can already see new towers looming, on the horizon. You can see there's a certain path in the middle of it, right? But we can see that when the moon reflects something that the star didn't reflect, that after all the cleaning up that you have done, you can still see two more towers that are going to have to crumble. So that means that at some point you already can see on the horizon, they're going to fall again, and you're going to have to clean up the mess all over again. That's why I just said that, because these two towers kind of show us that. And notice how they are, like I said, further away. You can see that there's some sort of an ocean on the horizon, and the path leads towards the ocean of the unknown. We don't know what these towers are yet. We just know they're there, because they are like somewhere, at a distance, and the waves are covering them, and the path leads towards them. So we are going to be led there, but we don't know what that is. That's why the moon can also represent lack of clarity, and we say that the moonlight is treacherous, because we don't know what we don't know, and in a way the moon represents our unconscious instincts. That's why it's a Martian card, because Mars is a card of following your instincts. And it's kind of contradictory that we have a card of named the moon that rules Mars, but that's just the way it is. And actually the animal that you can see at the bottom, the dark crustacean, whatever, it's a lobster. And you can see how he kind of dwells in like a shallow puddle here, and the puddle looks like it's still from the star card. It's because the lobster, if you look up its spiritual significations, the lobster represents our unconscious instincts too. What that means is that this way also is kind of like more darker and reddish. That's why the lobster also is an aphrodisiac, because it induces this kind of high state where you kind of are immersed in physical pleasure. That's why they are like such a delicacy, because they're tasty, and they increase the physical libido of the body, right? But it kind of encourages you to be in this blissful unconscious Garden of Eden state where you don't question anything. And there's always a part of our unconscious that is in this baby like mode, basically. And here you can see that the lobster is the one that's straight in front of the path. So it is our unconscious that's going to be ultimately led between from the shallow puddle on the path into the deep waters, where it's going to be 2 more towers. So the moon is where,
and then too, the towers coming out of the deep water might be that there's a lot more potentially tower that's in the because is that sort of maybe the unconscious, or at least the below what we can see.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's where we accept, because in the star we did all the cleaning, so we thought we're done, right? And here's where we accept that no matter how much cleaning we do, there's always more that we can see looming on the horizon. And that's because there's always this unconscious pleasure-seeking part of ourselves that dwells in shallow waters. We have that as humans. We are, we're not 100% deep. Like, it's just not going to happen. And the only way that you can actually make yourself deep is to be willing to have that confusion, right? That confusion is that readiness that, I'm going somewhere, but I don't know where I'm going, basically. I know that there's going to be somewhere to do, but I don't know exactly what's going to happen to me. That's why Mars represents courage, because what is courage? Courage is being able to stand in front of something in face of the unknown. When you know exactly what's going to happen, that's a plan. That's not courage. That's execution. So the very word courage indicates that there has to be an element of facing the unknown for that to even manifest and make sense, right? So that's why you have the Martian theme here. And the other thing that we didn't discuss yet on this card is that we have these 2 doggies in face of under the moon, and they're kind of like blocking the path of this little lobster that we have here. Oh, but before I move on to the dogs, by the way, I will actually make a small digression about the lobster, because it's very relevant to the moon. There is actually a film. It's an indie film made by it's made in English. There are American actors there. There's like Colin Farrell. He's the main guy there. But the director is Greek, and the film is called The Lobster, and it's exactly the imagery from. I really recommend it to you, Kazri, and whoever is watching now on the replay, because The Lobster is a film about a human future society where not being in a relationship is punishable by law. It's a dystopia, but it's a very metaphorical film, and the movie is called The Lobster because the way the punishment works in this dystopian society is that if you get a divorce, or if your spouse dies and you don't find a new partner within 40-something days, there's an institution that turns you into an animal as a punishment for not finding a new mate in like a little over a month. And basically it's a metaphor for society punishing single people and giving them hell for for not being attached or not even wanting to be attached temporarily, right? And so what happens is that the protagonist, that's played by Colin Farrell, when you enter his wife leaves him for somebody else, and so he's basically he has a problem because he has to find someone new, or they're gonna turn him into an animal. But what they do is they give you the kindness, is they let you choose what animal do you want to be turned into, which is hardly kindness, but what happens. And the protagonist says that he wants to be turned into a lobster, and he states his reason, and he says it's because they are blue-blooded and they're sexually active for a long time and they live for 1,000 years or whatever. And you can basically see that part of him, that what happens that he wants to be unconscious, because this is what the lobster is, right? It's living in this, yes, sexual but lazily experienced shallow life, that basically he's a shallow person. This is kind of what the movie is attacking here with the title, that there is shallowness in the way our society views relationships, because the lobster dwells in shallow waters, basically. So it's literally a manifestation for unconscious shallowness, and you can see there's like a whole movie talking about it, right? And this is someone who consciously chooses to stay in this unconscious part. This is someone who like has not mastered the moon card by definition, right? Because a mastered moon card is someone who's like, okay, I know that I have this reptilian brain that wants to do that, and I have to be able to deal with that somehow. The same way you deal with your little doggy when it barks at you too much, or you ask for too much treats, right? You discipline yourself, because Mars also rules discipline in this way. That's why soldiers get, yelled at in the army, because they're getting put in line. So in a way, not being willing to go into those depths of life means that you're a person that lacks spiritual discipline. This is what this card is attacking. And going back to the theme of discipline, these two doggies, you can see that one of the doggies is kind of sitting politely. It has this kind of body position that the dog has when you tell it to sit, and the other one has this, a butt up, and it's kind of like barking at the moon, and it's not really, acting very well. It's disobedient, right? So you can see here the contrast between obedience on one dog and a lack of discipline. And this is something that you have to tame in yourself, in a way, this uncontrollable part of yourself that makes it hard for you to achieve the spiritual self-discipline. Because if you don't know how to tame your own inner doggy, then that lobster is never going to get out of the shallow waters or go into the deep waters and transcend the next part of the journey, basically. So it's basically our own internal struggle. While there's a part of us that internally that's willing to obey to our own commands, right? There's always a part of us that resists. This is why we self-sabotage. This is why we procrastinate, because there's a part of us that shows us that resistance. And ultimately, when we're a kid, we think that we hate mom because she tells us to, I don't know, wash the dishes. But then you're 30, 40, 50, mom is no longer there, and you have to wash your own dishes, and you're like battling with yourself, right? At this point, you realize, well, mom wasn't the problem. It's my own human nature that always tries to resist against these kind of things, and I have to, keep it in check. And how well I do that is going to define the quality of my life, because ultimately it's my life, and what mom says doesn't matter anymore. I have to put myself in check because it benefits my spiritual growth, because I cannot get to the next stage if I don't know how to battle with myself constantly, if I don't know how to be my own general, basically. And with the whole moon thing in the background, you can see that all of this is happening kind of in an environment where we don't really fully know what our weaknesses even are. So we have to deal with them as they come. So it's very much a real-time thing. It's kind of, again, like going to war. When you have a gun and you're shooting at your enemy in whatever Middle Eastern country that you're being sent to, you don't know when the enemy is going to jump out from. In fact, it is the enemy's job to distract you and make things appear different than they are, so that you cannot shoot him. So in fact, this also shows that the moon kind of being is tricky, because our subconscious often plays tricks against us. So that, again, that's the self-sabotage part of our psyche, right? We self-sabotage because we're trying to protect some parts of ourselves that don't want to submit, even for our own good, right? So it shows the level of self-delusion that human beings can be. And that's why the moon card can represent self-delusion, that there's some difficult psychological work that we don't want to do. You want to say something, I see?
Yeah, and I do now have a curiosity. I just am noticing and wondering what the yellow, I assume they're not leaves. Do you have any guess as to what those are supposed to be below the moon?
Yeah. That's basically what you're getting when it comes to any elements of clarity, because these basically any solar entity in the middle represents divine wisdom, right? So these droplets are basically like the shreds of certainty, targets that you have that you're reaching for. That's why they're on the horizon together with the towers, right? Because you see that between the towers that you have to destroy, there's a goal that you have. There's something worthwhile that's leaking from the sky, something you're aiming for. So it's like a piece of God, a piece of the divine, like a piece of divine light that is falling onto the ocean of your subconscious, to know that when you go through this treacherous path, there's going to be something worthwhile that you're going to aim for, something that you're protecting. And the same way, for example, why does a soldier believe in their mission? Because they believe in their country or something like this, right? So that can be an idea of protecting their country, for example, or whatever that is for you personally.
Yeah, so I guess it's an awfully small detail to get into. Like, is the dog barking at the moon, or is the dog barking at? Because I assume those things are probably in motion and like coming down or moving around, which might be something a dog would be more likely to bark at. But I might be getting a little too literal. But it's interesting how much. Yeah, there's so much symbolism that's really cool. I never knew about.
Well, you can see how this dog that's barking, like the way he arches his neck, he's almost like wolf-like. You know how the wolves howl to the moon. This is this kind of symbolism, But you also know how when wolves have a pack and one of them starts howling, the other ones can't stop. It's just like a crescendo, And I can see with two dogs at home, one of them starts barking at the gust of wind behind the window, the other one does, and they don't stop. They mutually, like, they pump each other up, you can't shut them up. So basically it's the chaos, it's the lack of control. It's again the amount of lack of control. So yeah, when you ask what is it howling at, everything, because it can. Again, it's the lack of discipline. There's chaos, there's confusion, it's reactivity. That untamed reactivity that serves no purpose, basically. Anyway, so this, as you can see, this is a pretty heavy card, but this is the end of the cycle, right? The same way as in the Hermit, the emptiness and having to be so alone with everything and having to kind of everything you have known up until this point and gather that wisdom was hard. Here, you're instead overwhelmed by many things coming at you at the same time. So with Mars, it's like either it's too much and you have to go through a treacherous journey, or you're by yourself and there's emptiness. And both of these parts are challenging, right? Both of these things are hard on human psyche. That's why it's kind of almost like training, because both isolation and having so many challenges and so much uncertainty is something that our mind doesn't deal well with. It can even cause traumatic reactions for the rest of your life, right? That's why so many soldiers who come back from war, they see a therapist that's like government paid therapist, because they have been under so much pressure. They deserve the therapy, right? After everything they have done. So here again, this being the ultimate end of all cycles in tarot, it's the more difficult part of Mars. So now let's say that this card comes up in the reverse. It can basically mean that you are not willing to embark on this difficult journey, that all of this overwhelms you, that after the start, you're like, no, I don't want to deal with this mess anymore. I don't want to clean stuff up anymore. I just, don't want to do it. So there's resistance that can be indicated here. And the other thing is that if it's reversed, it can indicate that you are caught up too much in that struggle, because, it is part of life, but ultimately, despite everything that happens in the moon, the wisdom here is that you should go on this journey and still you should give yourself time to smell the roses too at the same time, because life isn't, not made of just one planet. Mars is one planet. We have other planets. We have other elements to life, like pleasures of life and the good things that we shouldn't sleep on, right? And we shouldn't, necessarily feel bad just because this is part of our journey. We should have that accountability about knowing that life is diverse, right? And here, with reversal, we can either, like I said, completely avoid it, or just take it too far to the point that we don't want to progress to the next stage. But it's going to depend on the other card that you have accompanying the moon card. And it can also indicate that the journey is so confusing for us that we can't even see this path that's in the middle, because the point in life is to get some sort of one goal that keeps you going among the unknown, and you stand to this one goal, and the rest kind of figures itself out as it goes. It's just how life is, right? And the confusion here can with the reversal can be so overwhelming that we kind of are paralyzed and we don't move anywhere, because we don't have any specific stepping stones that we are putting ourselves on, which is again lack of self-discipline, because who is the one that decides what the stepping stone is? Us. We decide what we're going towards, right? And it's such an important element of spiritual practice. Like, it's something that I've been telling myself with my channel and my practice for so many years, where it's been like over 5 years that I've been doing that, and there were moments when I really questioned the universal will of why am I doing what I'm doing, because I have had so many difficulties in my personal life because of going onto this path. But there's always something that I tell myself to do, like even if it's things like cleaning up my writing or cleaning up my YouTube channel and organizing everything, like give myself some sort of, or making sure that I write down any inspiration that I have, like some small goal, so that I'm going forward, and the long-term consequences are going to be revealed to me over time, even if I don't know everything. But then a good example to use, because I have Moon Mars conjunction, so I basically embody the energy of the Martian cards pretty well, because it's part of my basic consciousness. But I guess it's important to show somebody an example. Like, this is basically what Mars requires of everyone in their charts. And if it's conjunct the sun or the moon, or if it's in your ascendant in the first house, that means that it's going to be a very important part of your life journey to have that sort of faith among obstacles and uncertainty. But it is, in general, for everyone, an important part of spiritual path, because there's just not going to be, there's always going to be some element of confusion to life. This is what this teaches us, and we never know everything, right? And quite probably we don't even know what happens to us after we die, right? So there has to be that trust and that acceptance of the unknown that this card teaches us. Anyway, I'm done with this particular card. Do you have any other questions before we move on?
No. Other than I would have liked to be a little more on top of getting to this view. But yeah, live and learn. So we'll go back to this view, and do because that's the 18 what the moon was. So that's 1 and 8, which is 9, which is the end of that cycle, and then the sun is the last card, right? No, it's not the last card. The sun
the
is
last card is the world. The last card is the world. We have 3 more cards left. There's the sun, then the judgment, and the world. Can you actually move that forward, like a bit more, so that just for a second, so that we don't see the moon? Just move it further.
Sure.
We're gonna go back. Yeah, there you go. See, because now we're entering the last 3 cards that are at the end of the cycle. Because the moon was such a big closure point, and it's such a heavy spiritual lesson that it starts. The last 3 stages of a cycle, which is sun, moon, and Jupiter, which are going to close the whole fool's journey. Yeah. So that you can see that's why the moon card is so heavy, and that's why it was such a long explanation, because it's just such an important turning point from which there is no return. But also that's why it's so hard to cross. But it's kind of like, if you've got the moon down pat, if you've done this well, then pretty much you already are very, high spiritually. And that's why after the moon follows the sun, which is again in number 1, because it's a 19-1. Because once you embrace the uncertainty of life, once you embrace all the difficulties that I just covered, that the moon, entails, once you cross that step, you are free. You are free because there is nothing else, that can be more, complicated in life than being able to endure such pressure with all those difficult cards that we had in the last row, from the devil to the moon. So in the sun, you can kind of see that the central figure is the sun itself, not even the baby that's underneath, right? But it's the sun, which represents the divine will. The sun is basically God, right? It's the universe. So here with the moon, is like, if you are able to transcend your own confusion and accept it, you become God. You are able to tap into the divine spark in yourself, right? And technically, we all have that power. We all have an element of God in us, right? We are a reflection of God, of the universe. This is how we are built. So here you can see that you are more than a human. You are the divine light. And the fact that you have a physical form of this innocent, naked baby riding on a horse is less important. You have the freedom to be so innocent and so free because you have that wisdom of the sun, because you have that soul wisdom. So in a way, it's kind of like you have this perpetual childlike energy, which is something that the number 1 ruled by the sun too, by the way. So we have a card of sun ruled by the sun, which is appropriate, unlike the moon, whatever. The point is that once you are able to win with your own internal chaos, or at least accept it and put it in check, you win. And that's why there's a red flag next to the red flag. That sounds bad in the modern context, but this is actually the kind of how the ancient Roman rulers, they used to wear these white robes, and they would have the red drape all over them, and that would symbolize their seniority and their status, because it's a symbol of victory. That's why the red drape symbolizes your spiritual victory, basically.
I see. And then too, I'm going to notice that maybe you have the freedom to be the baby, which is innocence, but the baby is supported by a big, powerful horse that is then going to be able to help it get wherever it wants to go, right?
Absolutely. And the horse's fate, because as an innocent baby, when you have the divine intelligence of the sun, you know that your fate will ultimately take you to where you want to go. And this is what's so important. And the sunflower that you can see in the back, these are sunflowers, they are the symbols of eternal life. So in a way here, we are reborn here with the sun, where we still have the full intelligence, so we still remember that this life ultimately is a simulation, it's a game, and ultimately you are the universe playing with itself, right? So if you are able to endure the destruction of the moon and still play with yourself the way it is in the sun, then you really are, powerful. That's why the sun is such a powerful card, because there's power in innocence. It's not innocence that's born of unconsciousness. It's innocence that is born of deep wisdom, basically. That's why it's the most advanced number 1 card. The magician is actually more of a kid, because it's like a kid that opens a box of crayons for the first time and says, "Ooh, I can paint with them," right? But the magician hasn't been through it yet. He hasn't been through all that shit yet. The sun has been through all that stuff. So it's a baby that's innocent to notice how here in the magician, we kind of try to control things. We try to direct it. We are more in the energy of being of wanting to feel like we are an active will force, because it represents willpower. That's why we have the wand in our hands and we assume our own personal power. But the sun lets fate drive it wherever it wants. This baby is not trying to control the horse. It's kind of riding in and saying, yeah, wherever we go, I'm fine. And it's riding off into the sunset. It doesn't care, because this is the progress that we made from the magician towards the sun. We have gained all the control by giving up control, and we kind of are letting life operate perpetually on a cycle. So if someone is a life path 1 or a life path 11 or has a strong one in their profile, the sun is like the ultimate card they should be looking up to. And we might think that this is a very simple energy, but think of how hard it is to live that. Like, how many times a day do we all have anxiety? Like, all the time, right? Human beings are so bad at embracing the sun card. We suck at it. We want to control everything. We're scared of everything. We blame everyone for everything. We don't know how to get there that easily, and those of us that do, they, yeah, go ahead.
And that what you're describing there, that's the moon energy of the dog barking at the
exactly. Yeah, most people, they are stuck there, and it is hard to transcend all the stuff that happens in the moon card. It is difficult. And it may seem like a simple job, but this is the definition. Sometimes the simplest job is the hardest, because to be able to let go, it's kind of like, how many people are able to bungee jump, really? Why are we so afraid of things like bungee jumping? Because we're afraid that we're going to fall off a rock and die, crack our skull, despite all the security equipment that they put on us, right? How few of us really have the faith that says, well, there is security equipment there, and if I am meant to die right now, I could as well die crossing a street. That car could hit me and kill me. And if I'm not meant to die right now, it doesn't matter if I bungee jump, I'm going to live anyway. There is deep wisdom in those kind of people who do these kind of physical extreme tasks, because they have faith. They have faith in the universe that is going to preserve them, that they won't die when they are, not meant to die. And this kind of, in a way, meeting with your own death that the moon can represent, that it can feel so pressuring, from the tower all the way up here, is something that allows the sun to live its full life. That's why there's a sunflower, the symbol of eternal life, because there's even a bravado here that says, well, even if I do that right now, this is not my last life. My soul is eternal and immortal. So even if I crack my skull, just reincarnate. So in a way, there is a bravado here, right? It doesn't really encourage to be responsible, of course, but there's a deep wisdom in this, basically. That go ahead.
It is speaking to the oneness of everything and connection, and two, it's great to live in the sun card, but probably we're all imperfect, and so the struggle of going back and forth, sometimes, moon, sun, and then two, that's why there's the whole deck. When you get as connected as you can be, and Yugoda's really good at this, doing a reading and allowing the energy to flow through, and then the cards to come out. And in that moment, which of course there's only ever the moment, but in that moment, this is what the answer is. And in another moment, it'll be different, but it helps you. It's a message from the universe that can help encourage or remind or whatever.
Yeah, that's why some people are so bad at readings and like receiving them, because they try to control things. They have expectations, which is something that I already warned against so many times during our talks, that some people, they come to a tarot reader like they're ordering at McDonald's, and they're like, why didn't I get my double Big Mac the way I wanted to? But that's not how this works. But yeah, in a way, there is a certain bravado in the sun card. There is a bravado that comes. Yeah, you want to say something? Because I don't know.
No, actually, my cat is here. I think I'm going to step away and get. I forgot to put a little cat bed next to me so she can be up here. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So basically, there is a bravado in the sun card that comes from knowing that fate always ultimately leads you to where you are meant to be, and there's trust that comes from the fact that there's no way for someone to really skip on their fate. So some people, they really try to control the timing, and they're like, yeah, oh my God, if I don't have my own business by the time I'm 30, then by the time I'm 60, I'll be a jobless loser and I'll be broke, right? So people, they really live with this kind of fears, right? But the sun card teaches us that is absolutely, not possible, because you're always going to ultimately be taken by destiny to where you are meant to be. And for better or for worse, you cannot fight your destiny. You cannot fight the negative things that can happen to you, but you also cannot fight the good things that are meant to happen to you. That's why the sun is so full of innocence, because it knows that it has the divine wisdom, that the awareness that our soul ultimately had a plan for us, and it's guiding all of our actions. The trust in our own soul is something that we develop as a result of charting this deep water so many times in the moon. Now, if the sun card comes up in reverse, that can indicate that what we were discussing, that you have a problem with this energy, basically, that you are blocked, that you don't want to have the trust that you should be having in one scenario. But in another scenario, it can also mean that, some situations like they do require planning and cautiousness. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't have this in the back of your head all the time, but sometimes you have to do the math in life, even if it's temporary or if it's just one task. And having that card in reverse, coupled with another card that can indicate it, shows that maybe you're being irresponsible in something that that would require more planning. So let's say that you're asking about financial matters and you're getting this card in reverse. It may say, well, you're a bit too spendthrift when you should be, making sure that you balance your bank account, right? Because some things in life, like spiritually, you should have the bravado, but this is the contradiction of life. This is the nuance of life, that you should be free-spirited, but it doesn't mean that you should be responsible, because you are going to pay for being irresponsible, right? Like one doesn't contradict the other. This is just how life is. So it all depends on how you're getting it. Like, let's say that you're getting sun in reverse and you're getting the Emperor, which is like the ultimate management logical card. Then that says, well, okay, it's great that you believe in the universe and God, but now it's not the time for you to do this. Now it's time for you to be logical, which is what the Emperor represents. So it's all about the question, the timing, what you need to do when, right? But honestly, it would be good for us all to have that in the back of our head. It's all about how we use it. We should just use the wisdom responsibly. So, it's because then if it's not used responsibly, there's no wisdom anymore, right? Then you haven't really mastered that card. The one matter that I think that the Sun card really shows would help us on a deep level is matters that are completely out of our control. Because in this life, there are things that we know, the things that we know we don't know, and things we don't know we don't know. And, releasing control of the things that we don't know is the ultimate wisdom of the Sun card, that ultimately we will be taken to them over time. And in the meantime, there's nothing we really can do. So you focus on the things that you can do and leave the rest. And this is a good approach with this card, because this way you end up still being rational about the things that you have executive power over. You end up still taking care of those while you don't panic overly over the things that you cannot change. Anyway, I'm done with this card. Do you have any questions, or can we move on to the next one?
I think I don't have any questions, other than if anybody watching has a question, you could ask it. Otherwise, we'll go back to this view over here. Go on to the Judgment is the next card, right? Oops. And this one has many, like 3 people in the foreground, adults and a child, and then adults and children in the background.
Yes. And we have to also remember that Judgment is a number 2, so it is ruled by the moon, ultimately, right? Because the moon comes after the sun. So right now we're going back to the same image that we had up there in the high priestess. So it's like a more evolved. Yeah, it's like a more evolved version. Yeah, it's a more evolved version of that.
Cool.
So you can see here how, because we already, at this point, we have a commenter. Hello, Shivanchal Verma. I don't know who that is, but nice to hear from you. In case you are interested, we can offer you a mini reading. If you ask Tara some sort of question, after we're done, we can read something for you. If you are interested, the person commenting.
Yeah,
anyway, yes.
Think of your question, which, if they have experience, they'll know is sort of, tell me about an area. It's not really like a yes/no question, but
exactly. And going back to the Judgment card, because we don't have the solar intelligence, you can see that, how I'm always telling you that the central character in the card is the one that shows you what's of interest, right? So with the sun, it's our solar divine soul intelligence that was in the center, and the baby was kind of more like an object, like the passenger that's riding the horse and having fun, right? Here in the Judgment is the angel, the cosmic angel, that is the central figure, right? Like the people under it, like they're kind of just receiving that, they kind of look blissfully up to it. They kind of worship the angel. They are of lesser importance. They are more avatars, right? But this also shows us something that I think you may know less, because it's an astrological fact, is that the moon as a planet also, in its highest expression when it's maturely approached, represents surrendering the ego to a higher force, and it really represents worship, basically. So it's lunar energy that is devotional. That's why the moon represents devotion to your home, your goal, your partner, or to a deity. And you can see that how in the Judgment card, there are those worshippers that worship the angel, but they do it because they believe in the object of their worship. So it basically shows that ultimately the best thing that you can do with your intuition the most advanced thing here is unconditional worship, because you go from the divine intelligence to being the person that not only actively lets fate ride it like the sun does, but someone who worships any divine judgment that is passed down on earth. So basically, you say, anything that you do to me, God, that you have sent upon my life, I worship it even if it hurts. This is the attitude that we get in the judgment card. And again, as the cards get more advanced, you can see how difficult that is. Like, how many of us can say, well, that asshole that broke my heart 5 years ago, God, I worship you for giving me that. Like, we're not going to do that. We're going to say, screw you, God, for giving me that asshole in my life, right? This is how we are. Like, how many of us really are able to worship the divine, even for all the trials that fall upon our life? It's so hard, right? It's against our fundamental human nature. But this is the level of achievement that we get here, because we're almost at the end of the deck. This is the level of achievement that we have here. And you can see that these people, they look at the color of their skin. Like the baby in the sun, or even the woman with nice tits in the world card, they have like a human flesh colored skin. But these people, they kind of are like, they're blue, right? They're almost merged with the water and the clouds around them. Their skin is, they look like alien, like they're translucent, right? Because these are people who have abandoned their ego or the desire to control to such a level that they have blended in with the environment. There's a harmony with nature here, almost like a cacophony of being completely open and completely devoted to any spiritual direction that the universe gives to them. And because the tarot deck ends at the world, ends at the 3 card, you can see how any further numbers from 4 to 9, everything that represents any form of control, any form of trying to influence the material world by force. You can see how much these things are an illusion. This is something that it's also wisdom from Vedic astrology that, by the way, you can find it on my channel, because I have a podcast where I analyze a Vedic book that talks about it. I kind of took a break because I got sick, but I do have a lot of episodes already, and I will go back to it. But the Vedics know that the planets have a different nature. There are 3 different natures of planets. One nature of planets is what's called sattva. If you know Ayurveda, you know what that is. Sattva basically is being content with being alive because you exist. And the only 3 planets that have that wisdom are the sun, the moon, and Jupiter, which is the world card. So as you go to the end cycle of tarot, you have only sattvic planets at the end of the cycle. The other type of planet, which is, so for example, Saturn and Mars, it's called tamas. And tamas is otherwise called a smoke mirror, and it means the destruction of destruction. So Mars, the destruction of evil, Saturn, the destruction of evil karmas. So basically, it's a negative energy, but it's necessary because it's when we destroy the negative things in our lives. And the other energy, which is linked with planets such as Mercury and Venus, is called Rajas. And Rajas is control over the material world. It's the planning. It's the making of the schedule. It's you want to say something?
Yeah, and then I'm realizing since the tarot is old, it must be that beyond Saturn, so Uranus, Neptune, Pluto aren't going to be represented in these cards at all, because the deck is older than our knowledge that those planets exist, right?
The reason why this is not happening is because outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are completely beyond even notions of human control, such as Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. They are on such a high level that they don't even descend to that level yet. They are on such a big scope that to them, that those human concerns are they're too small. And yeah, you really convinced me that we're gonna do a whole episode about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto now, because I know that people need that really bad after I hear you talk about it. So we will cover that in the future, definitely.
Yeah, and that's right. The Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are higher octaves of other. I know Pluto, I think, is a higher octave of Mars, maybe, right? And then I forget what the other 2 are. Neptune is a higher octave of.
Pluto is a higher octave of Mars, Neptune is a higher octave of Venus, and Uranus is a higher octave of Mercury. But we will cover this. I'm convinced we're going to make a whole episode about this. After we're done with tarot and the Minor Arcana, we'll do that next, because the amount of misconceptions that I have heard about this it's amazing. The internet needs this piece of information, because it's not that readily available, actually. And I honestly consider myself lucky that that I am such a good intuitive channeler, and that I also had contact with Vedics, because actually, well, it's a bit of a spoiler for the episode when we do this, but it is not true that the ancients didn't know about the existence of these planets. They knew. In all Vedic texts, you can find mentions of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They didn't know what that is, actually. They just have the wisdom of knowing what that is, which I will talk about in the episode, so no more spoilers. But yeah, it's not mentioned for a reason here, basically. It's because it's on a higher
awesome.
scale.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I will take a moment to be thankful that I've connected with you, and that we're doing this, this little project or this Saturday regular thing, because then that allows us to bring knowledge that you have, which is you've studied a lot, and I'm happy to allow you to share that with the world.
Well, thank you. Anyway, but that brings us to the understanding that these three energies of planets, Sun, Moon, and Jupiter, are the only ones capable of sattva, which is the ultimate divine wisdom of being in that state of bliss of the fact of existence. So that no matter how many bad things happen, that there's still ultimately satisfaction that comes from just a state of being, and there is no greed or desire, because desire is more of a rajasic thing, the desire to increase something. And the desire to increase always leads to a destruction, because when we increase, we develop excess, and then the excess needs to be cut off. So with the birth of desire, there comes a birth of destruction of the desire. And sattva is a pure state where you don't desire anything, and as a result, because you are so happy by not desiring anything, you also don't experience any negativity. So here, when we approach the third and final stage of tarot, we have only these kind of planets, right? This is why when we started with the sun was so sattvic. He was happy to be alive and just let fate lead it somewhere. And the next level after this is the moon, is the ultimate devotion to whatever divine call the universe puts, not just on them, but notice also how the sun is one baby, but the judgment is a collective card. There's like an infinite number of people here. So it's collective worship. So it's more like whatever the universe deems appropriate upon the whole planet, we are fine with that. And again, think about how far away we are from that in the modern world, that, we watch the news and like, oh my God, people are getting killed. That's horrible. The judgment card that says collectively, well, the country that's meant to fall will fall, and those who are meant to die will die. And, I trust God into it. And we perceive it socially as cruelty, right? We would think, oh my God, you're a heartless bastard. But in fact, it is a high level of spiritual wisdom, is that you cannot stop anyone's death if it's meant to happen. What you can do is you can try to alleviate someone's suffering. You can try to explain something to them. And it doesn't mean that helping people is moot, because you can help them. But ultimately, it is also preordained that you will help someone in the way you are meant to help them and no further. So it's like, even you helping, you are an instrument of God. You are a servant of divine energy. And the judgment card understands this. That's why it's called judgment, because any judgment of any action that you perform, this is the divine performing judgment on how you want to be used. So in a way, you understand your role as a divine pawn in that card, not just relative to your own self, which is more in the sun, but relative to the whole collective. So here you kind of allow yourself to be used in a way by the divine, and you are happy with that. Notice how these people on the card, they are looking up. They don't even be looking down at earth. They don't even care what's going on. They're like, yeah, just put me over there. The surrender to the divine is complete. And one more thing, notice how they all are in their own specific boxes. They all have this little box where, you can see their little butts like hanging above the box. It's because everyone has their place in the world. That's why the moon rules communities, and also there is a familial element to it, because everyone has a role to play in this world according to what the divine angelic judgment that we have here. And when this trumpet calls, it's the divine call, our little box is being moved to where it's meant to go, like a chess piece. And these people, they don't even look at what's happening to the box. They let the box be moved with them. They look to God for meaning and for faith that their box is being moved at the right place at the right time. So it's the ultimate card of complete devotion, judgment. I'm just wondering if there's any symbolism here that I didn't cover. The boxes I covered, the people I covered.
I have, I guess, something I know. Well, I'm curious about the red cross on the white thing, but two, I get a little triggered by this this version of this card, just because it feels very Christian to me, and nothing against people that works for them. That's great. But that's not my jam. And to me, the boxes, other than the fact that the baby's box is pretty square, like the other two, kind of, it's evoking a little bit. Oh, and actually, like whether I'm avoiding the word, kind of looks like, because they're on the ground or slightly above the ground, that they're actually coffins. And if you look to either side, there is maybe something implied that, like, maybe there are like lids. Maybe that's not what that is, but it almost kind of looks like that. And so it has that whole like Judgment Day, like all the dead people are going to rise, I suppose. Rise out of their coffins. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. But I like how you interpreted it, because too, the other people, like, you can see for sure one of them is also in a box, and probably they would all be in boxes. And yeah, if if I was, I think the Christian view of this is Judgment Day. All the people that didn't believe are burning in hell, and then only the Christians or whatever religion you believe in are coming up out of the ground and that's why they are all pasty, because they're like corpses, reanimated corpses.
I am very happy that you touched on that, because I am sure that you are not the only person who could have these kind of qualms in the world, and we should address that right now before someone else thinks that, which I'm pretty sure someone already has, and we are supposed to explain this card here, so thank you for helping. I was born Catholic, so I know exactly the quotes that you are talking about. Like, I know I've been educated. Like, I'm not religious at all, because my spiritual wisdom is too much to be able to subscribe to any religion, and anyone who has reached that level is they have seen too much bullshit to just to be able to do that. But I know what you're talking about, right? And what you're thinking of Christianity is basically like a watered down wannabe version of what I just explained. What they're doing is that they're trying to model this concept for the purpose of religious control. This is what's happening, but there's no real understanding, because the real life application of that is very difficult for human beings. Like, there are so few people who are able to really have that wisdom in this life. This is so hard. Like, the Vedic rishis, like the spiritual adepts in India, they practice that. It's an art. It's an art of devotion, an art of surrender. It's so difficult to do that. Religion takes upon this concept and sells it cheap, the same way that you can have a fake Gucci bag on the pavement on New York streets, right? This is not the real deal. Do you see my point? And so then people end up with an aversion towards things, but this is because it's a copy, it's a fake imitation of the real spiritual concept, because the real concept is so hard that we struggle to apply it in our daily lives. As human beings, we are fallible. This is so hard for us to do. Our desire to control things is so strong that even monks probably, they battle with themselves through meditation to achieve that state, right? And then we end up with all these negative perceptions that come from our culture. And this is what you meant about, Kazri, and some people can be mad about, is the fact that this false version has been put onto humanity for so long, and this is rightfully creates anger, because it's something that should be changed. But if there is real understanding on a spiritual level of this card, you know that there is nothing to really fear from the true essence of what this card is supposed to mean. What you can fear is people trying to misuse it. But then again, people can use anything, and they can use anything as a weapon. And what matters is the intention, not the object of the intention. And demonizing the object instead of calling blame where it is, which is the person that created the negative behavior, is what causes such reactions in people, which is perfectly normal, right? Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
It's really spurring me to want to talk a little bit about, I guess, about Christianity, or I suppose really any of the name brand religions, which, I grew up raised Episcopalian, which is like Catholicism without the Pope, sort of Church of England. So we didn't have a lot of guilt. We didn't have a lot of whatever. But it was as a child learning it, it felt like, like the concept of God was sort of the bearded sky god father thing. And I didn't really read the Bible, but, kind of getting the gist of, you're going to be in trouble, and, you need to stay in line. And two, with this card being called Judgment, it makes me wonder if a better term wouldn't be either surrender or and I have an issue with the concept of judgment. I try not to do judgment, and surrender feels like one of those, we're not worthy, we're sheep, or whatever. And something like acceptance, I don't know if you could tell me whether you think acceptance would be another vibration of this card that, that I could be excited about, rather than judgment, because I don't quite understand. At least the vibration of judgment doesn't feel like what you've been talking about when you've been describing the card.
Yes, it's because what you have to understand is that the angel, the higher force, the universe, God, is ultimately our soul. It's us, which means that we are the ones who are passing judgment upon ourselves. It was our spiritual higher decision. So what's happening is that the problem with what you have is that you feel that someone is judging you from a higher level, right? This is how you feel about that. But in truth, it was your soul who judged that certain human experience was necessary before you came here, and is the case for everyone. And the reason why these people that are listening to the judgment call is because they have the wisdom of knowing that ultimately the angel, the higher force, is them. And so what happens is that the higher aspect here with the trumpet you can see that he kind of breathes life into them. It awakens them. It awakens not them from the metaphorical dead of unconsciousness. It's not physical, right? So our soul, the awareness of our soul, is what awakens our unconscious human bodies. This is how this works, basically. So we are waking up ourselves to our own souls. So in a way, it's a sovereign spiritual decision. And when people feel resistance to that, they feel like somebody's judging them. But in fact, you have to now imagine that you have the wisdom of the sun card, the sunflower, the eternity, right? And you are soul floating somewhere in the ether in a higher dimension, not earthly dimension. And you are saying, well, what kind of next incarnation do I want to pick right now? Who do I want to be? You have to make a judgment call about what kind of life do you want, so you can have the experience that you want. And if you do not make any choice, if you do not make any judgment about what to do with your human aspect, your divine self, then you cannot have a human life. Then you cannot have a human experience. We have to pick something, right?
Cool.
And here,
other than, go ahead. Unless you, I want to cut you off and say, I follow all that. I agree with all that, and yet, and maybe I'm just like, I'm really precise about words, even though I'm feeling a little off in my speaking today. Because when you were talking about those things, it still feels less like judgment than maybe like making a decision to do something or having a plan or an intention, and then even the idea of awakening. Like all of those words I like better than judgment. And I guess whatever, I'm getting stuck on this word. And not only do I not like it, but it doesn't quite feel like it's fits for what you're describing. But do you think it fits?
I'm just thinking of a situation to explain better to you. Think of a situation in court, right? When you have a judge in a court and maybe you have two petitioners on both sides arguing a different point, right? Or like maybe sometimes there's one petitioner that just argues with the court, and because they petition for something, there's still a judge there, right? And there's still going to be a judgment verdict, right? So very often when something happens to us in our lives, we have the issue with the sun card, with being able to go on the faith, because it's like, well, who decided that this fucked up stuff should happen to me, right? And the judgment card is the one that says, you are the judge. You decided that. You decided that you are going to go through this fucked up stuff because you wanted to. So ultimately, we are the ones who pass spiritual judgment on ourselves, and not for the purpose of punishment. This is the issue that you have with this is how what happens in our modern world. In our modern world, the courts almost exist as a business, and they exist as a negative punitive force. But fundamentally, judgment and a judge is someone necessary because it represents objectivity. It represents being able to do what's fair and what's right and what's wanted and intended by everyone. This is how the word should be used. It should be used with wisdom, and it should be a positive word. Because imagine a world where there will be no judgment and where there will be complete chaos. It will be absolutely unbearable.
Yeah, and it makes sense. If I can translate it to being more of the judgment process in order to make a decision or whatever. I think I understand now. I'm happier with it.
It's also about how we feel, right? When something bad happens to us, don't we feel like we're getting punished sometimes in our little human reptilian brain? When something difficult falls on us, it's like, how many people look at the sky and say, God, why are you punishing me? Like, it's just it's an easy feeling to have when you're in despair, right? Doesn't matter how we call it.
So other than, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't, we won't, I'll stop us from wandering off onto one of my ADHD tangents, but I don't necessarily so much feel like I'm being punished about things, but I do. So I guess I take it on as like, that, I guess it is my own self-judgment of like, I haven't handled something in a way to have things fall out to be in the flow and having things be easy when things get hard or things are weird. That feels like the universe telling me that I'm not in the flow. And yet when I'm feeling scattered or like I can't find that flow, then So anyway, I was trying to interject and say I don't necessarily experience it the way I think most people do, but I still and I guess I don't want to spend forever and ever on this card, but now I'm curious about how, because I feel like it has so much of that, Christian Judgment Day visuals in it. I'm wondering if there is a different way, like if you were to redesign this card, would there be because in some ways, like when you talked about the boxes could be like moved around, like the people are just, you know, going with whatever goes on, but it's almost like you could have like chess piece, you know, symbolism or some other puppeteering symbolism or something else rather than people in boxes that they fairly look like coffins. Other than, like I said, the fact that they made the babies one square, yeah, that's not a coffin shape. So yeah, so I guess they're not.
You know, I already touched on the whole coffin symbolism, that basically the soul,
Sure.
our call, is what the call of our souls, what awakes us from death. So in a way, you know, it can be like this because our own inspiration, our own spiritual understanding is what makes us alive in the first place. So I touched on the coffin thing, but I'm going to touch on something else that I can tell bothers you, and I think can bother a lot of people. Why do you think so many Christians buy into the whole judgment day thing? Why is it so popular? Why do so many people crave to hear this? Why do so many people buy into that stuff? You know, why do so many people look for it? Why do so many people look to it for hope? Why do so many people surrender to it? Why has it become such a plague in our world? You know, the twisted version of this, because people behind the twisted version of this are looking for the truth. People want to know that everything they have experienced and everything they have done and everything that have been through has a meaning and makes sense. That's what this is about, really. And when people say, "Oh, Christ is going to descend and wake up your dead body," or whatever, they want to know that their physical death would not have been in vain. People are afraid of physical death being meaningless. People are afraid of their life amounting to nothing after it's over. That's what's really going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And two, not believing in the, you could call it the soul, the spirit, or whatever, but it's really obvious to me that there is an essence to each of us that does survive, and that isn't necessarily, you know, isn't just about the body. And because, and I haven't experienced a lot of death in my life, but you know, one of the times was actually having one of my cats like euthanized in my lap, and I didn't know how long I was going to sit there because this was like a couple decades ago. But I was, you know, sitting on the floor cross-legged. I had the animal in my lap, and when he passed, he was just gone. And it's like I was holding him, but I was holding the shell of what used to be my cat, but it wasn't my cat anymore. I could tell he was not there, and so I didn't really need to sit there for any amount of time, because I've seen some people either with humans or with, I guess more with humans, you know, like holding on and grabbing it and like, and just really attached to that, which it's like, well, can't you see, don't you sense that like that used to be where that spirit was, but it's, you know, maybe it's all around the room now, but it's not in the body. At least that's my experience. But yeah,
It's like a husk. Yeah, I know because I've seen a lot of my dead loved ones, not just my cat too, which I've also had that experience at the vets, and it was really horrible. Like I cried so hard because, you know, I had her for like over 20 years, and, you know, and she was so sick that we had to put her down, and it was really difficult. But I've also seen, you know, my family members during the coffin viewing thing before cremation or whatever, and it feels like a husk. It doesn't feel like the person anymore. I know exactly how you feel about that because I've seen that firsthand. And in a way, I think you can also have an issue with judgment, referring anyway to punishment or whatever, however you view it. But I don't know if you've ever heard of a film that's called Defending Your Life. I recommend to everyone to watch it. This is a film. It stars, how is she called? She's famous. Meryl Streep. She's a very famous actress, right? Everyone knows who Meryl Streep is. She's a main female lead there. And this is a film that talks about a fantastical reality where you get to experience what happens to you after you die. And basically, it's like a whole society of people who are kind of in an afterlife state. And what happens is that all these people, they hold a trial where they explain actions that happen throughout their life. And you should see how this trial looks like there. The people who judge them, by the way, they're not other human beings. They are some sort of ascended masters that just have human form to make it comfortable. So just to be a judge there, you have to have like a very high level of spiritual credency to just, you know, be in that court. And you can see in the movie that there is no blame, there is no guilt tripping, there is simply action-reaction. And this is how it is that if as a soul you descend and you become a serial killer, then you have to reincarnate as someone who is going to be the victim to understand the gravity of your actions, not because mom is punishing you, but because you are unaware of how your actions felt outwardly. So in a way, the judgment here is not for the sake of saying, oh, you're bad, you're good. It's for the sake of saying that every person throughout the course of their life has done things that were good and bad. And when you die, you have an opportunity to review those things, not so you can feel bad about yourself, but so you can see what you can tweak. Let's say they write a paper, and before you submit it, you check for grammar mistakes. Do you beat yourself up because you forgot a comma? No, you put the comma in and then you do it better next time, right? So in a way, inherently, the universe doesn't have the judgment that we have. Even if someone is the worst kind of murderer, rapist, and whatever, they're not gonna say, "I banish your soul to hell. We never want to see you again." That's not how this works. The way it works is that this person will be showed exactly the full extent of their action, even if it takes several incarnations to do it. They will be met with their own selves over and over again until they face up to themselves. That's what judgment is about, is that when they say, "Oh, the Lord will come down and he will judge things," it means God will ultimately always show you exactly who you are. And if you cannot own up to it, you will be shown that over and over again. Because why do people commit evil acts? It's because they convince themselves that they are right. How many people can really commit an evil act with full dedication to it and owning up to it and saying, "Yes, I killed someone, I'm a murderer, and I'm happy I did that"? That's very rare, right? Like most people, they say, "Oh, it's this person's fault," or "Oh, she forced me to kill her," or "Oh, she look what you made me do. You made me beat you up." How common is this, right? People do it all the time. People don't own up to the fact that they did something wrong for the sake of doing something wrong. They look for excuses not just in front of others but in front of themselves. People don't want to own up to it. They don't want to even own up to self-preservation or even choosing evil for what they believe is self-preservation, right? People are ashamed of that. They are in resistance to the aspect of themselves. And what the judgment calls makes is that ultimately there's a collective responsibility about truth-telling, that other people in our lives always illuminate the aspect of ourselves that we are not facing. And that is very difficult for everyone. And you don't have to go as far as be a serial killer to have that. Maybe you have some sort of a mini stupid flaw and you don't want to admit to yourself. Then, I don't know, maybe you leave socks on the floor and your partner says, "Pick up those socks." And you're like, then maybe I should learn how to pick up my socks. How many people are in resistance to like not being able to, to fix even small habits like this, which can go from a small habit to a very serious wrongdoing, right? And the judgment card means that ultimately the universe, God, whatever, Jesus, whatever you believe, will put something even in this life, but in the next life, it will put a mirror in front of you that is so strong that you will not be able to escape from the truth of this aspect of yourself. And, I think that the issue you might have there is self-righteousness, because Christians believe that because they're Christian, they don't have any flaws and they are going to be the God's chosen. Well, in fact, they're humans just like any other human beings, and everyone is judged by their actions and consequences. It doesn't matter what you believe in. Like people, honestly, the universe doesn't care if you pray to Buddha, Jesus, or Allah 10 times a day. If you end up murdering your own mother, you still did that. So while devotion can be a way of purifying your character, it doesn't excuse what you did. So you have to be devotional and be a good person and do good deeds, right? So what I think people can... Yeah.
And it does feel like, and I guess that's what bothers me about, a lot of people that believe in the name brand religions is, I'm all set. I'm believing the one right way. And so it is just it's such a superficial thing. Like, and too, that's, I guess, the reason some people don't get cremated, because, well, if you cremate my body, when judgment day comes, I'm not going to be able to be resurrected. And I'm like, I don't want my rotting corpse to be resurrected. That's like it's weird. And then too, what really bothers me and what is really harmful in the world, I think, is each extreme believers in each religion getting so excited about this is the only way. I mean, and I guess that's what the Catholic Church did once upon a time, of getting big and powerful and then stomping all around the world and, like, at gunpoint or knife point or whatever, convert to our religion or we're going to kill you. And so they killed a lot of people. And then that's why all of, like, Central and South America is a lot of it is Catholic, because it used to be indigenous people that had their own system, but whoever was, all the leaders were killed and everybody else was like, you have to believe. And they are really passionate people, so now they really passionately believe in something that I think any of the institutions just having the structure and the hierarchy feels like a weird idea. And too, just to share, I mean, my belief is that we all are spiritual beings and we all have our own connection with the divine. And the first red flag you ever see is somebody who comes along and says, "Oh, well, no, Yagoda's got it. We're all going to follow Yagoda and she's got all the answers." It's like, no. That's like the first sign that you better like either walk away or just say, okay, you're free to do whatever you want, but yeah, I don't need a middleman between me and the divine, because it's just such a bizarre concept to me. And it's interestingly bizarre that people believe it, and it's bizarre that people would want to do that. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't believe in heaven or hell, but that just feels like a wrong thing to do, to tell somebody, no, I know better. You come to me, I'll talk to God. That I just like, isn't that what most religion seems to be? And there's a different hierarchy. You have your local minister or priest, and then you have cardinals, and people higher and higher. And then like, that's just like completely man-made concept weirdness. That's all probably about like, and I'm off on a little bit of a tangent, but like the whole confession idea, which I don't think every religion has that, but the ones that do, where you need to tell me all of your things. And so you've got one person in the town who's probably the most powerful person, because in theory, they know all of the crimes, who's cheating on who's like abusing who. They know all these things. And it's like, well, and what are you doing with that information? If you're not like making things better, you're just the keeper of that, so you can keep people in line. Like, oh, you better do what I want you to do. Otherwise, I'm going to tell the authorities, or I'm going to tell the community that you're doing this bad thing that I tricked you into telling me, because I told you that I can clear that with God for you. I'm just like, makes me crazy. I don't enjoy it.
Okay.
Anyway,
so no, I think it's a very valid point. I think it's something that we should address, because it's just so important when we talk about spiritual concepts. So first of all, I want to point out that you can just see how what you said. You don't have an issue with the concept of judgment. You have an issue with what people do with things. So what happens is that actually the irony here is that the image of judgment that bothered you represents all people that actually have very poor judgment. Do you see the contrast here? This is what actually bothers you, because universal mirroring, universal judgment is always fair exactly to what you do. There's no error there. There's no error there because it's you. It's like when you have a mirror in front of yourself, unless the mirror is cracked, the mirror it's an objective reflection. That's really all there is to it. It doesn't lie. It doesn't have an agenda. It's just there. But it's all the people who have their own personal problems who make it so that they cannot really understand the concept. And the truth is that if you're afraid of any sort of objective judgment of anything, you're afraid of yourself. This is just how it is. And he's so cute. Long fur. I miss cats.
Yeah, she. I guess we're going a little longer than we usually do. She really wants me to feed her, and she's going to have to wait. She has dry food. She wants wet food.
Yeah, I know. I have 2 whiners behind my door too, but they're going to have to wait as well. Anyway, yeah. So basically, with the other thing that you said, so historically, the problem with that was lack of evolution of human society, because people used to have to work really hard just to get basic food. They didn't have supermarkets and jobs, and they didn't really have the ability to get an easy food supply or easy shelter the way we have, which is why spirituality is on the rise for the masses right now, because we have the luxury. Back then you used to have a hut or a house and a small field, and you ate as many potatoes as many you dug up, and then during the winter you ate as many resources as you have put in your potato shed during the harvest time during the summer, right? So life used to be really about physical survival during that, historically in the past. And that actually ended not so long ago, because let's think about things like what the industrial revolution, that's what the 19th century. So we might think that this is far away in time, but it's not. In a history of human evolution, that's relatively very close. So human history that we can remember and know of, because God knows what the history books don't tell us and we don't know, is that for the longest time there was a concept of strict survival that was ruling the masses. And when you are occupied with survival, you don't think of your spiritual development because you don't have the time. And as a result, you get uneducated, spiritually stupid, unaware masses. So the concept of a priest is someone who instead has their physical needs provided by somebody else, and instead they become the bridge for when the spiritual needs become urgent, for the person to be able to do it. Because these people who can't, who are so low, like working next to the ground, they may not have the consciousness to be able to do it. They need an external mirror to help them. And originally that was supposed to be the idea, and that worked, for quite some time. But then the fact that those in power usurp that power is a problem with those in power and their lack of their own personal development. And as someone who, was in a Catholic environment, I have seen priests that were legitimately good people. They were almost philosophers. And I've seen priests there were complete assholes. They had addictions, they smoked, and it was really funny to see that, you know. So the fault again is not in the institution, the fault is human. Because the idea of a spiritual teacher is not a bad idea. It's how the teacher is, basically. And it doesn't mean that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, before it became large institutionalized religions, there were, and two who they sort of knocked out of the way were the wise, the shaman and the midwife and the wise people that knew the thing. So and in those cases, and even the elders, like where, as the more life I lived, the more I realized, there's really no shortcut to experience. And so too, older people tend to get to a point where they need people to take care of them, but having them there, and they're the keepers of the knowledge, and you go to them with things, and then they're at least the one, of course, in the case of the ones who are wise, and the community kind of understanding that. But
it's also the fact that as any elder or as any teacher or any ruler, even political ruler, what happens is that you don't stop becoming a flawed person, because you never do as long as you're human. So what happens is that you compartmentalize your life in such a way that for that moment, when you work for the public, when you work for the masses, you have to be able to forget yourself, and you have to be able to transcend your personal issues just for a while, as long as you can, so that you can deliver the wisdom, the support that the public trusted you with. And that doesn't mean that when you come home, you cannot succumb to dealing with your own flaws, because it's just human, But you have to be able to put your ego down enough to kind of just become the vessel for this wisdom temporarily for that person who needs you. Like, you think that I don't have flaws in my personal life, like I battle with them like all the time, right? But when I come to do the live stream or when I write something, I might use some of them for the purpose of the conclusions that I made to help others. But, I just, for that second, I forget about those personal things that I have, unless they come from a conclusion that will be useful to give to others as a benefit of my experience. And I forget about it because there's a higher concept that I'm talking about that is bigger than my human life. So right now, I'm not going to talk about, I don't know how many clothes I have in my closet, because it doesn't matter. I'm talking about something else, right? Unless I'm going to talk about sustainable clothing, in which case it also becomes a higher concept, to give to people. So in this moment, you kind of forget about your ego, not just that it's erased completely, but you have a higher idea in mind. And let's say that you are a priest, you are allowed to struggle, even as a higher spiritual being. But when someone comes to you in confession, you have to give them that objectivity, and then you have to have the purity of soul, not to do anything with information, like you said. Like when someone comes to me for reading, do I post that on my Facebook wall? No. In fact, I kind of forget, because it's not my business, right? I give the people the advice they need, and then I take it forward, right? I don't disclose their personal information publicly. So
and two, it is very much a mode that I haven't been as aware when I'm in or out of that, but that is part of what I really like about doing live streams and consulting with clients, because I forget all about my own personal stuff and just be really, really present. And there is information that flows through. In fact, I'll give a really small example. I just I had a reason that I needed to Google myself the other day. And one of the first things that came up was this interview that Leo Russell did of me. She did it about 1.5 years ago, and it was posted about 10 months ago. And I happened to listen to it and watch it. And at one point we're talking about structure, and, because you need a certain amount of structure, but like having too much structure can just be too much. And I heard myself say this, and I think I just sort of channeled it, because I don't even remember saying, it's like a tree, or it's opposite. Like structure is, a tree starts as a seed, and it just organically becomes a tree. And that's so amazing. It doesn't have any spreadsheets. It doesn't have any intentions or plans or 401k or worrying about whatever. It just exists. And two, nature is all around us, just being beautiful and functional and, lovely. And when we get in our heads and get too concerned about structure, we can't. And it was related to, I'm involved with the project, and there's one person that really is like freaking out about we don't have any structure. And I was remembering that actually Leo and I are two people that are very much into the organic aspect of, you need to have certain amount of structure. We had to decide it would be at 5:30 today so we could both show up, but I didn't like make a plan for this. And I'm not sure, you might've made some notes, but it it's really beautiful to just be in the moment and just flow. I didn't plan to say this part. I'm just saying it. And that's my favorite part about anything that I watch or anything I experience. Somebody really wants to come in. I can hear
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, don't stop yourself.
Anyway, so yeah, that was pretty much the end of what I was gonna share about that, because we probably need to get to the last card at some point.
Yeah, give me a second. Like, I have to like see what's going on because they are louder than they were the whole time. Like before, and this is like really alarming. Yeah, I'm gonna see.
Excellent. We will pause, and I will actually. I could take a moment and put up some banners here to remind people that where are they? To please like and like this video if you liked it. Thanks for being here live if you were watching live, and thanks for watching the replay. Subscribing to the channel is a great way to support us. Here's my contact information. Oh, you're back already? Oh, not quite yet. And this and all the events that I do are on my events calendar, which you can get to from the Hecates.com website, or you can go directly to that at meetup.com/Hecates Network. And I do have, excuse me, some of Yagoda's banners, but we don't.
Yeah, I had to let them in because they're losing it, but I think that they can survive, at my feet right now. So
nice.
It's okay. Cool. It's okay, poor thing. Yeah, it's been a very long time, and no one is home because my father-in-law is working, and I think Scott is still playing. So normally there's someone home, so they're coming, and right now they've been alone for so long that they're like physically shaking. So yeah, but they're small, and
hopefully they'll be happy enough that you've let them in the room and they'll be okay. Because too, I know they haven't seen a lot of you this week, and that's another issue.
Exactly, me being ill and all. Anyway, yeah, I hope that I cleared up the whole judgment thing, that ultimately the flow, what you're describing is very, very human. It's not in the concept or in the divine. Concept of judgment is what humans' personal flaws can do with that. How it can be really the human weakness that destroys the concept. And now ultimately the idea, if executed well, is correct. Is correct, and in a way, it is again our higher aspect that decides what brings us alive in the first place. And the human form with all its human desires, without that aspect, would just be in this empty husk that we talked about, right? That without the soul call, we are dead. And the cross that we see, by the way, here, crosses all over historically over historical times, they represent justice also, like a sound choice, a balanced choice. So in a way here, it's about our souls and the universe doing what is best for everybody, and how we have that wisdom inherently in us. And that means that, whenever our little human selves mess up, it's going to just be turned back around ultimately, even if it takes, several incarnations for that to happen. Anyway, let's say that the judgment card is in reversal in your reading, because we haven't touched upon that yet, I think. That means that you may be failing to see the bigger picture in something, and you may be distrustful of the universe, distrustful of God. You may not believe in certain things. With this, you may be very, resistant to that idea, because you may think, oh, yeah, I want to control everything. So those people who really want to be in control of everything and don't understand that their divine higher aspect is the one that wants the best for them. Those who are distrustful spiritually can get that card. And on the other hand, maybe again, in contrast, there's a situation that requires you to this time take decisive action, the physical. When the card is reversing, you're not doing it because you kind of are burdening your higher aspect with certain things, when your human aspect should move certain things around too. That can also happen with reversal, again, depending on the context and how the cards are accompanying it. You can have one of these two results. So again, too much judgment or not enough. Or maybe, there is a question of also of a misinterpretation, that something happened, and from a spiritual standpoint, you don't fully understand the universe's or your higher self's intention. And there can be, like, in a way, a misunderstanding with yourself that can be indicated here. And other clarifier cards will tell you what's really happening at that point. So if you are ready, I'm going to move on to the world, unless you have any other questions.
Nope. Let's go do card 21, which is then the 3.
Yes, that's the non-vibration of Jupiter, because Jupiter is at the end of the cycle. Because ultimately what matters within this universe, which is again an elaboration of the previous card, is expansion, wisdom, and understanding. Everything the universe does, it does for the sake of us expanding and having a bigger perspective and learning, because Jupiter is learning. So this is why it's at the end of a cycle, because at the end of every cycle, you have come to this experience to learn. You have chosen this human form to learn something, or you have chosen to be in any other alien form that you might have, so you can learn something too, right? Basically. So what is happening is that essentially you are showing that any journey that you have been through has had the purpose of giving you that perspective. And even if really bad things happen to you, even if you say, man, I don't know, I was Hitler in this life, what did I learn from this, right? This is the kind of the thing that you have to do at the end, is that when the journey ends, you ask yourself, what was the wisdom, what was the lesson that was derived from that experience. And this is kind of the wisdom that comes from having the judgment card, is that your soul wanted to learn something, and that's why I picked this experience. So after you have the master the judgment wisdom, you come into the learning stage, because you already have surrendered ultimately with the sun and the judgment. So here you kind of become like a universal spiritual scholar that can take the most kinky human experience into like a wisdom book, right? Basically, that's what Jupiter is like. That ultimately there is an higher aspect of you that wanted to learn something. And by the way, the reason why this woman in the middle has a purple scarf or whatever around this, because purple is the color of Jupiter. It's the color of higher energies. It's purple that goes into white. It's the color of the ether, of the abstract concept. It basically shows that life is kind of like a movie. We set up the conditions for a movie because we are wanting to learn something from the movie, something abstract. And the characters in the movie, they are just actors. They are just a pretense for giving us the experience they were looking for. Basically, this is what really matters. And the world card shows that. And by the way, this is again the situation that we already had before in tarot, where we have the 4 fixed signs. We have the bull, the eagle, which is the Scorpio, the Aquarius, and the Leo. The 4 fixed signs, they were on another card. I forgot which card. We had this symbolism before. Can you look zoom out so I can remember? I'm having a brain glitch because I'm
sure. Yeah.
There was another card that had this. It was the Wheel of Fortune, exactly. So basically, here we can see that there's a mirroring. Do you see how similar these cards are in a way? The Wheel of Fortune with the zodiac symbolism and the and the world card, how they are in the corner, right? Because ultimately, it's the understanding of the divine law that governs any lesson that we learn. And do you see the circular symbol that we have around it? It basically shows the cycle of life. It shows that life is a cycle, and shows the infinite perfection of life that exists, and our understanding of that perfection. And ultimately, what we're looking for is we're trying to reconcile the understanding of our human self with the understanding of our divine self, which is very hard to do, because the divine self has the higher aspect. The soul has ultimate understanding, like on the highest level, while the human self struggles to achieve any understanding so hard, right? But ultimately, these things being intertwined and linked with this red, it's about us trying to make that final connection. This is the card where we truly understand that certain cycles have really served the purpose of bringing us closer to our divine essence. That everything brings us closer to our soul. And these characters that are around, they're not only those fixed zodiac signs, they are also elementals, because the earth is made of the ether element, which is in the middle. That's Jupiter, and then there's also earth, water, fire, and air, right? So all these elements together with all those signs show some sort of harmony of the universe that's also expressed on Earth and both outside of Earth. So in a way, this card shows not only ending but perfection. It shows perfection of creation as much as the Fool. Only with the Fool, it's kind of like a blank card. In the world, it's a complete card. In the world, it says this world can be everything, so it's perfect. And the world says this world is complete, so it's perfect. So in a way, it's like two sides of the same coin in that situation. And notice how this figure behaves. Like, she kind of looks like she's dancing through air, So in a way, we can see that an evolved spiritual person is someone who kind of dances with their own destiny. They respond to the currents of fate, and they move with them, and they respond to them flawlessly within the circular symbol, the tunnel of their own destiny. So it's kind of like someone who treats life as this intricate, complicated divine dance that they are, fulfilling the main role in. And given the fact that we have just again had such a spiritual upgrade in those two previous cards, Judgment and Sun, we can show with the world how much mastery that requires. But the oval symbol, basically, in a way, it's kind of crowning us, because if you reach to this stage, this is like the highest level of spiritual completion that you can achieve, right? So in a way, it's a high level of praise. Anyway,
completion. Can you speak to what is she holding in her hands, or why does she have something in each hand?
yeah, there are some sort of wands, like wands for conjuration. It's a balance symbol, that it's kind of like baton twirling. It's a symbol of balancing the energy and dancing in the ether. It's a symbol of being a spiritual depth. Notice how the magician at the beginning only has one wand and it's like one long, and here it's like this one wand has been broken in two parts. It's been broken in half. You see, he has one here. Yeah, and she has two, because this is the beginning and this is the world is the end, basically. So you have reached mastery in a way. With the magician, you kind of have one because you command things and my will be done. Here, you kind of just you're dancing in balance with both aspects of things. Anyway, let's say that you have this card. Let's say that you have this card in reverse. That can indicate that there is some sort of cycle completion that you don't want to allow. That maybe you are failing to see some conclusions from something that you should have derived wisdom from at this point. That maybe there is something that you were supposed to learn from a difficult experience and you're resistant to that. But it can also mean, depending on other cards that you get, that you're philosophizing too much if it's in a reverse position. Or maybe that the lesson that you want to learn is different than what you're expecting. So maybe you're putting your ego into the lesson you think you're supposed to learn, and so you're not really learning the truth. So there is some sort of obstruction to seeing the truth, because the world and Jupiter sees truth for what it is. So this card in a challenge position doesn't see the truth like it should, basically. Anyway, do you have any questions?
I don't. Thank you so much for going so extra long on all this. If you'd like to do a reading, we didn't have anyone in the chat that had a question. I tried asking when as people popped in and left, but you could do a quick reading for me, or I know you're not necessarily feeling 100%. If you want to just be done, I could let you go.
Well, do you have any questions that you would really like to ask, like something that's like really calling to you, something urgent?
Kind of, yeah. There is a lot going on with the freedom advocacy and anti-Scientology stuff. Physically in this city, there was a small action on Wednesday that I was at, and things really are happening in that realm. So if the cards want to jump out and tell me, give me any advice or tell me what's up with all that, we can definitely keep it really short.
Okay.
But,
well, I hope that you don't mind doing that next week, because we're gonna have right now 4 weeks of Minor Arcana, and you're gonna have a lot of occasions to do that, because I'm kind of really distracted because the dogs here, they're like sniffing around me, and I have to really surrender to open like the cards, and try to fully go into this, and and I want to do your reading well. So hold on to that question, and next week after we do the Minor Arcana, we're gonna answer that for you, because again we have like 4 more weeks of occasions for readings, and people may not ask anything. So your question is it's there, but I want to do it well. I don't want to do it half-assed. So yeah.
Well, thank you for being honest about that, and I'm going to go ahead and get the music going, because I think, or let's see, I didn't put your contact information. Let me do that, which should be right up here. Anyone who hasn't subscribed to my channel, if you're watching it on my channel, please do that. You can also subscribe to Yagoda's channel, which we are also streaming to. It's always interesting when you stream to 2 channels to remember that. And I'm a little bit of a lazy reader here. Let's see, here is one piece that has, the link tree / making spirituality real is where all of her links are. And her YouTube channel is at making spirituality real. Yagoda has a healing practice that involves spiritual coaching, astrology, reiki healing, tarot, and I should add human design. I actually maybe should consult you about that, because I really enjoyed that. And human design involves all of those elements, really. Yeah. Oh, and I have a signal group with my organization, which is Hecate's Network, which involves the spirituality piece, the astrology piece, tarot, psychedelics, freedom activism in the form of anti-Scientology stuff, which is really heating up. So check back for that sort of thing. And let me get some outgoing music queued up, and we will say goodbye. Here.
Yeah, and next week we're still doing tarot. We're doing minor arcana for the next 4 weeks after that, so you can have a full spectrum of the tarot cards. We have already finished the major arcana, and you understand the whole fool's journey from the fool to the world. And right now we're going to go more into the smaller cards. And yeah, again, my idea is to do one element each week, but we'll see how long that takes. So we will see how that works, time wise, and we will still cover all the minor arcana.
Exactly, and there's links to the previous videos if you'd like to review those. Thanks everybody for being here, and we will see you next time.